Well, welcome along, one and all, and it's good to see that so many of you have managed to get yourself here. We're going to start with the address to the haggis because I feel that it's the right thing to do, being as how this is our annual supper.
Oh, here we go.
You might want to adjust your settings. Very well done, Callum.
Bravo, bravo.
And as if by magic, a haggis appears. Fair for your honest, sonsy face, great chieftain o' the puddin' race. Abin them all ye take your place, painch, tripe, or fairn, wheeler ye, worthy o' grace, as lang's my earn, the groaning trencher there, ye fill your hurdies like a distant hill. Your peen would help to mend a mill in time I need while through your pores, the dews, the still, like amber bead. His knife, see rustic labour dicht, and cut ye up with ready slicht, trenching your gushing on trails, brachtle on a ditch, and then, ho, 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 what a glorious sight. Warm reeking, rich, then horn for horn, they streets and strive, deal to the hindmost on they drive till all their wheels swalp kites, but alive are bent like drums. Then all good man mace like to arrive. Bethank it hums. Is there the Auries French ragout or onion that would stow a sewer? Fricassee would make her spew with perfect scunner. Looks doon me, sneering, scorn for view on sick a dinner. Oh, peer devil, see a Maori's trash as fechless as a wither rash. His spinel shank a good whiplash his kneve, and knit through bloody flidder field to dash. Oh, how unfit, but mark the rustic haggis fed, trembling earth resounds his tread, clapping his walling eve a blade, he'll make it whistle, and legs, and arms, and heads, he'll sned like taps o' thistle. Ye powers, will make mankind your care and dish them up their billow fare. Old Scotland wants na skinking ware that joups and luggies, but if you wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis.
A haggis. Bravo.
Thank you very much, one and all.
Well
Evening, Willie. How's you? You're muted, Will.
You're muted.
Aye, that's the best way to hear me, thanks. I know, I'm great, thank you very much. You'll be wishing I was still muted lately. Thank you very much for the invite. It's great to be along and see as many smiling faces. It's just great to see anybody's face the new, so it is.
That's it, right enough. Well, we're going to start off with a bit of community singing. I'm going to have you join in here. If you don't know the words to "There Was a Man," you can just leave it to the professionals. But I'm sure it'll all be good.
That was a fair address to the haggis anyway, Cammy. So it was well done.
Thank you very much.
Aye, I do much work doing my local chip shop because that's what he does with mine when I get it going pick it up. It's mushed up like that.
Oh dear.
Hope they're your shareholders in McSween's because the profits will be going down tremendously this year.
Was a lad was born in Kyle, by and one day,
Oh, what a day, and what
Sally was a while,
to Sally was
we roll.
Debbie said,
Robin was a roving boy, rantin' roving, rantin' roving. Robin was a roving boy, a rantin' roving, roving. Our monarchs and most year but young was 25 days begun. Was then a blast o' January 1, blew Hansel in on Robin. For Robin was a roving boy, rantin' roving, rantin' roving. Robin was a roving boy, a rantin' roving, roving. The gossip kicked in his loof, for sure while lives will see the proof. This wally boy will be nae coof. I think we'll call him Robin. He'll hae misfortunes great and small, but I heard about him, oh, he'll be a credit to us all. We'll all be proud o' Robin, for Robin was a roving boy, rantin' roving, rantin' roving. Robin was a roving boy, a rantin' roving, roving. Wee musical break. But sure as 3 times 3 mak 9. I see by ilka score and line, this chap will dearly like our kind. Say blessings on ye Robin, get faith qua show a doodna star. He'll gar the bonny lassies lie a spar, but 20 fods ye michty he war. Say blessings on ye Robin. Aye, Robin was a roving boy, rantin' roving, rantin' roving. Robin was a roving boy, a rantin' roving, roving. Aye, Robin was a roving boy, rantin' roving, rantin' roving. Robin was a roving boy, a rantin' roving, roving. Oh, well done. Well done. Well, Kirstine, if you're good to do the Immortal Memory straight off, then that would be it would be a pleasing time to do it.
Okie dokie. I'll just make sure you can see and hear me.
We
If
can
everybody
indeed.
can
Yep.
smash in. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. And thank you so much for the invitation to come and join you this evening. Of course, would much rather be seeing you all in person in that amazing space that is the Bachelors Club. When I first attended this supper and spoke to you in 2014, it was a night to remember. And in fact, I will remember it all my life. I think it was just an amazing evening. But that space is such a special space. It's really one of my favourite of Burnsy's spaces. So I'm genuinely sorry that we're not there in person, and I look forward to the time when we can be, which will happen at some point in the future. That's safe to say. When I spoke to you in 2014, as some of you will remember, that I was the first ever woman to speak at the club. In fact, I was the woman, as Chris Waddle will remind us, I'm sure. And no woman had ever spoken at the club before. So, of course, my topic really had to be Burns and Women. And I was tempted tonight to do a kind of Burns and Women Mark II. Women feature, as a central strand of my narrative this evening. So I'm not forgetting them, but I'm not going to do a Mark II this evening exactly. Because since 2014, and Jim's question right at the start of the evening addresses this, since I last spoke to the club, or first spoke to the club, I've been at the coalface of editing Burns's songs for his second song editor, George Thompson. And it's due out in just a few weeks' time as part of our Centre for Robert Burns Studies' new edition of Burns's complete works, or collected works of Robert Burns. And I can feel the fear across the internet. Oh God, she's not going to talk about that, is she, for the next 20 minutes? And no, not in so many words. But musing on that aspect of Burns's life an awful lot in the last few years, and especially in the last few months, means that I've been thinking a lot about Burns and music in general. And we know a lot about Burns as a poet. We know him as a brilliant writer of verse and letters. We know also from the research we've been doing at Glasgow in the first volumes that we've produced that he's a writer of commonplace books, tour journals, wonderful illuminating notes on his manuscripts that he wrote for his pals. We know that's from Nigel Leask's wonderful edition. We know from Murray Pittock's work that, we've seen afresh how Burns engages with the song culture of Scotland in the 600 Songs of the Scots Musical Museum, which is, to this day, probably the most important collection of our songs. But we still, I think, don't quite know enough or think enough about Burns the musician. So that's really what I want to do in the next 20 minutes. And I wanted to begin with one of the 56 letters that Burns wrote to Thomson around the 30th of August, 1793. So I'm going to quote from that. This is Burns. You know that my pretensions to musical taste are merely a few of nature's instincts, untaught and untutored by art. For this reason, many musical compositions, particularly where much of the merit lies in counterpoint, however they may transport and ravish the ears of you connoisseurs, affect my simple lug no otherwise than merely as a melodious din. On the other hand, by way of amends, I'm delighted with many little melodies which the learned musician despises as silly and insipid. So this is Burns writing to Thomson. And that got my mind racing. Untaught and untutored by art, merely a few of nature's instincts, and lo, it came to me. I am nae poet in a sense, but just a rhymer like by chance, and hae to learn in nae pretence. Yet, what the matter, whene'er my muse does on me glance, a jingle at her? Or, gie me a spark o' nature's fire, that's all the learning I desire. Then, though I drudge through dub and mire at pluch or cart, my muse, though hamely in attire, may touch the heart. And of course, you know that, the epistle to John Le Prake of the 1st of April, 1785. And in a sense, we all know what Burns is driving at here. He was a poet of nature. He was both made of nature and fascinated by it. But we also know that he was no rhymer, like by chance, and that he was well versed in lots of poetry and the works of other writers, Pope, Shakespeare, Locke, and of course his predecessor in Scots song, Alan Ramsay. And if Burns was happy to kind of foster this heaven-taught ploughman idea in terms of his work as a poet, could it be the case that he was willing to try a similar line with his work as a songster? If that was the case, then his protestation of musical ignorance in that letter to Thomson might reek of just a wee bit of insincerity. But is it insincere? We know far less about Burns's musical education and skill than we do about his literary merits. We know, of course, that he's inspired by, you know, Betty Davidson and his mother singing and telling stories. We know from Dr. John Moore that the first song he writes is for Nellie Kilpatrick, who sings, but he's also kind of competing with one of the Laird's sons who's already written a song for her. So there's a wee bit of competition in there. And of course, he talks about Nellie in these really sort of sexy terms. So he's love and poesy, he says, come together. But Nellie also had a really beautiful singing voice. And if the Burns boys' home tutor, John Murdoch, is anything to go by, then that was most certainly not the case for Robert. Most of you will know this already, that Murdoch wrote, Robert's ear in particular was remarkably dull and his voice untunable. It was long before I could get them, that was him and Gilbert, to distinguish one tune from another, he said. So it's thanks to a woman, in fact, Burns's younger sister Isabel, or Isabella Begg as she came to be known, that we do find out much more about Burns and his musical skills and interests. And here I want to thank the Robert Burns Birthplace Museum, and particularly Amy Miller, who used to work there. She worked there a few years ago, who let me see a very special manuscript that was given to them on loan, but is now kept in private hands. I don't know if you can see this. I might just see if you can see this. That's the cover of it. You might just see up in the top there a wee bit of information which says Burns's musical acquirements. And it's a wee 4-page manuscript from 1847, and the covering note tells us that it's the transcript or the notes from an interview with Isabel Begg by Captain Charles Gray. And there's a series of 6 questions that he's asked to ask her by the big song editor George Farquhar Graham, who's actually quite an important Scottish composer and song collector in the early part of the 19th century. And he's working on a big collection of Scots songs in the 1840s. So he sends Captain Gray off to ask Isabel about her brother. Some of you might know this already. Did Burns read written and printed music, and could he write it down, was question 1. And the answer was yes to both. Isabel said she saw him write down sacred tunes, but not others. But she said he did include written tunes often in his letters. And we know for a fact that at least one of his letters to Thomson did include musical notation. I've seen the very letter myself. And from working on Thomson's letters, I can deduce that there must have been tunes sent with some of the other letters, although they don't exist anymore inside the letters that we do have. Question 2 was, did Burns play and sing by ear, and what sort of tunes or airs did he like? Slow, pathetic airs or quick and lively ones, or did he relish both equally? Well, Isabel says that Burns loved printed collections of tunes, and we know that from some of his letters because he talks about some of them. But she even remembers his preference for particular tunes. Loch Erechside was one he really liked, she said, and she lists others including My Nanny O and Tweedside, The Cold Frosty Morning and Auld Rob Morris. And we know from Burns's letters, especially again to Thomson and to James Johnson of the Scots Musical Museum fame, that he knew these contemporary collections really well. His sister said he loved Strathspeys, and undeniably several of his most impressive songs are set to Strathspeys. Those are that really stylistic dance tunes, often quite slow in tempo. Undoubtedly one of the best for me is Major Graham's Strathspey, the Neil Gow tune, and this is the tune that Burns chooses for My Love's Like a Red, Red Rose. I'm sure you'll remember it. Oh, my love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love's like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. As fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I. And I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry. till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. And I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. And fare thee well, my only love, and fare thee well a while. And I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 miles. So it's a really beautiful, thank you, it's a really beautiful, stately tune. Gow's Lament for Abercairnie, of course, provides the music for Where Braving Winter's Angry Storms. That's one of my favourite Burns songs. Loch Erich Side, that strathspey that Isabel remembers Burns loving so much, is used for O Stay, Sweet Warbling Woodlark Stay, which I discovered woodlarks are no longer in Scotland because I heard the tweet of the day on Radio 4. And as I was listening to the Radio 4, I was editing, going through the edition of the song for Thomson, and I thought, well, they bloody well existed in Scotland in the 18th century, that's all I can say. Caledonian Hunt's Delight, of course, another very famous strathspey, and you'll know that one as Ye Banks and Braes o' Bonnie Doon. And even something like O Tibby I Seen the Day, which is set to Invercauld's Reel, but Burns marks that as a strathspey when he writes down a wee sketchy version of that in his Commonplace book. So that's the tune, O Tibby, I seen the day ye wadna been sae shy, for Lake O'Gare ye lechtly me, but truth I carena buy. Ye streena met ye on the moor, ye spakna but gaed by like stoor, ye geck at me because I'm poor, but fiend to hair care I. O Tibby, I seen the day ye wadna been sae shy, for Lake O'Gare ye lechtly me, but truth I carena buy. So that's another example. And I could go on because there's loads of references to strathspeys also in Burns's letters. And of course, he talks about visiting that region after which this style of music is named when he's on his Highland tour. So his entry for the Highland tour on the 17th of September, 1787, he writes about travelling. This is a lovely description for this time of year. Travelling many miles through a wild country among cliffs grey with eternal snows and gloomy savage glens, till I crossed Spey and went down the stream through Strathspey, so famous in Scottish music, Badenoch, etc., till I reached Grant Castle, where I spent half a day with Sir James Grant and family, then crossed the country for Fort George, he says. So strathspeys, of course, are central to the Scottish fiddle tradition. What became of Burns's fiddle? Asked Captain Gray of Isabella Begg. That's question 3 of the interview. She recounts that her mother, Jean Armour, actually couldn't remember the details of what had happened to Burns's fiddle, but she did remember it hanging on the wall at Ellisland. She remembered that Burns didn't have any formal lessons in learning the fiddle, but he did attend a singing school when the family lived in Loch Lee, and for another 3 months when they moved to Mauchline or to Mosgiel. We know a lot about older song schools in Scotland dating back to the 16th century, but we still know virtually nothing about how these song schools worked in 18th century Scotland. A real sort of burgeoning research project there, I think. The young Scots fiddler Aaron McGregor, who has recorded some of these traditional or original melodies from the publications Burns would have known for our Burns project, and you can listen to them. He plays them, and the cellist Alison McGilvery, fabulous period cellist, plays for him. So you can hear them online on our website. He said he was struck at how much time, or how little time, right? How much time we spend on the words and how little time we spend on the tunes. And he was amazed that Burns really knew these collections as well as he did, pointing out that his friendship with Robert Riddle when they were living at Ellisland and the Riddles were in Friars Carse is really very important in the whole story of Burns's music. And also pointing out that Burns knew quite a lot of these tunes from dances. Sue Knight's painstaking work on the dance tunes that are connected with Burns's songs and poems has now been published, and it shows that this is exactly the case. And some of those dances, of course, Burns and Gilbert and the other lads of the Bachelors Club will have learnt at the Bachelors Club with the Greg fiddle, which I don't know if it's going to be played tonight, maybe not, but when I was there in 2014, it was quite electrifying to hear that fiddle played in that space. Burns, Isabella recalls that Burns got his fiddle about 2 years before they left Loch Lee, so I make that he was probably about 23 at the time. But the fiddle seems to have not been his only instrumental interest. Our pals at the Irvine Burns Club have a silver gilt medallion, a Victorian medallion from about 1859, well, actually from 1859, because of course it's 100 years, the centenary of Burns's birth, with the coat of arms on it that Burns designed himself. And many of you will know that that includes a stock and horn. In fact, I meant to have on the table here my lovely Burns mug that has his seal on the back of it, which has the stock and horn. I'll maybe get that later in the evening and fill it with something nice to drink. An early chanter that is made out of a hollowed sheep's leg bone with holes drilled in it. Very lovely thought, isn't it? I hope they washed it first. Burns was very enthusiastic about the stock and horn, and this is the kind of pipe that we often see in 18th century illustrations of, shepherds playing the pipe in the glens. Burns, I think, quite liked that pastoral association. And a more sophisticated version of this is the early oboe or hautbois, which Burns calls it, and it's that instrument playing the old tune "Hey Tootie Tatie" that whipped Burns into a frenzy. He said filled his eyes with tears indeed, and inspired him to write the text for Scots Wha Hae, which he recounts to Thomson in a wonderful letter in August 1793. And the manuscript of that letter is so het up when he writes that Wallace and freedom and Scotland are all written in much bigger letters than the rest of the letter. It's quite a fabulous letter to look at. Apparently there's a guitar in the mix somewhere. I need to dig around for more information on that. And just about a week ago, David Hopes from National Trust for Scotland was in touch with a picture of a wooden flute, which we also think belonged to Burns. So he seems to have dabbled a wee bit, maybe didn't take any formal lessons, no harm in that, but clearly fancied more than just the fiddle, playing around with more than just the fiddle. The fifth of the 6 questions in the Isabel Burns interview was the final one to do with music, because the last one was about contacts, was about people she knew and things like that. And the last question was it Burns or Stephen Clarke or someone else who wrote down the airs or melodies that Burns sent to Johnson and to Thomson? Well, if we know that Burns was capable of writing music, and we do know that, then of course it may have been him. But more often in his letters, he refers to Clarke and to some other friends helping him out, writing down tunes, visiting to play tunes from new collections that he'd ordered up and that had arrived at Ellisland or at Dumfries. And I'm thinking particularly here of collections like Patrick MacDonald's Highland Vocal Airs, which had appeared in the 1780s. Now, Clarke, of course, is the musical figure behind the Scots Musical Museum. He's a really interesting character. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he and Burns had a very special relationship. Several letters, more than one, several letters exist where Burns describes Clarke taking down a tune from a performance of a song that they've heard for Burns, which suggests that Burns wasn't quite confident enough in his own skills to dictate music from listening to it. The most famous example of that is a letter all about him writing down the words, Burns writing down the words and Clarke writing down the tune for Caw the Yows, a song which Burns both collected in a version that he'd heard and also rewrote for Thomson later on. And there's much more information about Burns discovering this tradition and remaking these songs in a brand new publication that's due out at the end of January by my friends Kath Campbell and Emily Lyle, published by Musica Scotica in Glasgow, which is going to tell us a lot more about that. It's a really fascinating study. And it resonates with me when I was very young. Before I was an academic, I interviewed David Dyke's great Burns scholar. Many of you will know his work, of course, being great Burnsians as you are. And he described Burns's handling of these kinds of traditional songs as very often a process of breathing life back into these songs that had maybe lost a bit of currency, or finding a fragment and literally resuscitating it as part of the process of handling songs that he did. So it's really a lovely and fascinating process. And actually, Emily and Kath include this interview with Isabel Begg in their book. So look out for that if you're interested in reading a wee bit more. So the interview with Isabel, with a woman, leaves us in little doubt then that Burns had musical knowledge and significant musical talent. Though for those of us who listen to or sing his songs, it's pretty unthinkable to conclude that Burns didn't have music in his blood. So that brings me back then to those comments I started with, claiming that Burns claiming that he was no musician, that he clearly didn't feel confident in tackling Thomson about things musical. Thomson, of course, is the man who marries Burns's songs, sometimes with Burns's choices of tunes, sometimes with his own choices of tunes, but with musical settings by a whole wheen of European composers of that moment. So it's Thomson we have to thank for marrying Burns's words with musical arrangements by Haydn and Beethoven. Of course, this was after Burns had died, sadly. Burns was really very enthusiastic about Thomson's project for a number of reasons, but he was always a bit concerned about these foreign composers riding in and rearranging the Scottish tunes that he knew and loved so much. And he was quick to warn Thomson not to allow them to change the tunes too much. So when Burns was working with Thomson, the composer who was doing the arrangements was one of Haydn's famous pupils, a guy called Ignaz Pleyel. And Burns, warned Thomson not to let him change any of the tunes. He just had to arrange them and not faff about with them. Pleyel then disappeared just after the first collection of songs that Thomson published. Burns was thrilled to bits with that first collection. He sent it to lots of his friends. He commented on it in lots of his letters. But Pleyel then disappeared, and the project was held up for many years, which was really frustrating for Burns. In fact, Burns didn't see the second set of 25 songs in his lifetime, which was a great tragedy. And he wanted Thomson to use Stephen Clark for this project, but Thomson refused. So it's in these letters to Thomson that he starts to suggest that he doesn't really know much about music. The one that I started with about the melodious din and his simple lug. Then in September 1793, he says, "Of the poetry I speak with confidence, but the music is a business where I hint at my ideas with the utmost diffidence," he says. And a year later, he says, "I'm sensible that my taste in music must be inelegant and vulgar, because people of undisputed and cultivated taste can find no merit in many of my favourite tunes. Still, because I'm cheaply pleased, is that any reason why I should deny myself that pleasure?" he says. What the collaboration with Thomson really has taught me is that Burns is often playing games with Thomson around Thomson's status, his so-called knowledge. Burns might not have been able to compose a classical composition or create a classical composition, but he did have a good sense of musical knowledge. His friendship with Robert Riddle Robert Riddle certainly was more than a competent musician. And of course, it's for Riddle that Burns writes down all his notes on Scottish songs. So there's a real connection there. Burns clearly understood the workings of a tune. We know that elsewhere in his correspondence to Thomson. So he certainly could hold his ground on what was a good tune or not. And that comes across in the letters to Thomson too. He sometimes says he's not very happy with some words going to a particular tune. He sometimes suggests he might move a tune to match a different set of words. So while there's a case for some of Burns's songs definitely to be sung to their original tunes, and I would argue for me, Red Red Rose works best to Major Graham, I also, on the other hand, don't think we need to be too precious about singing the songs to different melodies. What Burns would have made of the musical legacy Thomson left behind of his songs set by Beethoven, Weber, Hummel, romanticising Burns is really impossible to say. And what he would then have thought about the hundreds of composers, Schumann, Franz, Shostakovich, Percy Grainger, Benjamin Britten, all those other guys, and just about every Scottish composer since 1800 setting his work, is just a mystery. But sometimes these handlings of Burns's songs open new doors for us on his work. And I want to end by talking about just one of them very briefly. When Burns created the lyrics for The Rantin' Dog, the Daddy O' It, or Wha Ma Baby Cloots Will Buy, for example, he chose a dance tune, Whaur'll Bonnie Annie Lie, which turns this song about illegitimacy into quite a joyous song about illegitimacy. So here's the first couple of verses to Burns's choice of Whaur'll Bonnie Annie Lie. Oh, wha ma baby cloots will buy, wha will tent me when I cry, wha will kiss me where I lie, the rantin' dog, the daddy o' it. Oh, wha will own he did the fault, oh, wha will buy the groanin' mort, oh, wha will tell me how to caw it, the rantin' dog, the daddy o' it. So the lyric, of course, has Burns's protagonist, an expect pregnant girl, ask who'll buy her baby's clothes. But in the second part of the song, she muses on her relationship with the father of her child with a great deal of fondness, even although she's having to sit on the stool of repentance for her sins. When the Scottish composer Francis George Scott set these lyrics in the 1930s, he chose to reflect on it musically in a rather different way. And I can't help but feel that Burns would probably have approved of, or at least understood, what Scott did with it. And this is Scott's tune. Obviously, there's a wee piano accompaniment, but we don't need it for this tune, I don't think. This is Scott's version. Oh, wha ma baby cloots will buy, wha will tent me when I cry, wha will kiss me where I lie, the rantin' dog, the daddy o'. Wha will own he did the fault, wha will buy the groanin' mort, wha will tell me how to call the rantin' dog, the daddy o'. When I mount the creepy chair, wha will sit beside me there? Gie me rob, I'll seek nae mair, the rantin' dog, the daddy o'. Wha will crack to me my lane? Wha will mak me fidgeon fain? Wha will kiss me out again? The rantin' dog, the daddy o'. So, thank you. Thanks. So,
Fantastic.
Burns's melody is jaunty and defiant, and Scott thought differently. But it was Francis George Scott who categorically stated that Burns was the greatest lyric poet in all literature. When he was born in Hawick in 1880, he was born on the 25th of January. And he said that when he realised the significance of his own birthday, He felt as if a star danced above his head. Those of us who work with Burns and love him know just how that feels. I'd like you to charge your glasses with me. I have a rather nice Ardbeg here in front of me. And allow me, please, to propose the toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns.
To Robert Burns.
Robert Burns.
Rabbi, and thank you for listening.
Excellent.
That was fabulous, Kirstine. Thank you so much. I'm always taken, whenever you hear, it's not just Burns. Many 18th century and indeed 19th century figures will always talk about the vibrancy of Strathspey, which usually to a modern ear seems quite stately and not at all sort of upbeat, but obviously, they're living in a completely different environment. And it must have come across to them quite differently.
Yeah, and I think Burns is willing to kind of interpret it that way. I think we sometimes think things have to be played just as they are, but this is living music, and actually if we do think also about the dance side of things, which I don't think we've really recognised quite as much as we might in Burns's life and work, then you do see it differently. For me, the Major Graham tune works best because Red Red Rose is a wee bit artificial. It's a wee bit, it's a very beautiful song, but he is putting it all together as a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, and he is quite sentimental in its own way. And I think that kind of stylized Strathspey works really well for that particular song. But other songs he does different things with it. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. But that was first rate, Kirstine. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ian Buick, maybe that's a job for you, marrying up the dance with the music.
Well, Cammy, can I ask a question?
Of course, Jim. Yeah.
This is for Kirstine. Kirstine, in your view, when Thomson sent these words across to Europe to Beethoven and Pleyel and Haydn, I've heard some of the results of that. I would like to know what your view is on how these Europeans transcended and tried to interpret the words of Burns's songs into in Vienna, Haydn and Beethoven, the epicenter of European musical culture at that point in time. Could they really correlate to the work of a ploughman poet?
That's a really good question, Jim, and I'm going to disappoint you hugely by telling you that actually Thomson never sent the words. So Thomson sent the tunes, and they were asked to arrange the tunes for voice and piano, cello and violin, so that there was this kind of little chamber music thing going on. What he did send was a description of the content of the song. So he would say, this is a comic love song, or this is a song about death, and the immortality of love or something. So he would give them a wee strap line, but they didn't get the full text themselves.
Okay, they never got the words. They never actually had the words.
The really funny thing is, only one of the composers complained about that.
Beethoven.
Yeah.
But did Thomson not write back to him and tell Mr. Beethoven, you've got it wrong?
I think Thomson just got left in the lurch, really, because Beethoven found the words, got the words and got them translated into German for a publication of his songs in the 1820s, which came out at the same time, really basically just a few years after Thomson's songs. So he kind of just went off and produced his own versions, but he was really annoyed that he couldn't interpret the full text, because for him that was part of the process of handling songs. But it's really interesting, he was the only one to really question it,
Kirstine, one other wee thing I want to ask you about the correlation between Burns and Beethoven. I have certain heroes in my life, Burns and Beethoven being two of them.
Me too.
And every time I sing Beethoven 9, I've sung it many years with Edinburgh Festival Chorus, I think of the words to that about alla Menschen werde Brüder.
Yep.
Did Beethoven actually know what Burns had written about in a man's a man for all that?
Do you know, it's highly possible Beethoven did see that. Sadly, it was not one of the songs that he set for Thomson, but it was a song that was set by Kozeluch, and it would have been available to Beethoven in that form. So it's not a million miles away that he would have known that. But of course, Burns's sentiment is not purely his own. It's a sentiment very much
indeed.
at that moment, you know.
Very
so,
much, yeah, and of course.
Yeah, but it's not inconceivable that he would have known Burns's text. It's not, because it was out there and it was already published with a musical setting by the time Beethoven started doing his stuff for Thomson. It's just that Burns, I don't know if that one was, I would have to dig around. I can't remember if that particular song was already translated into German by that time. I don't think it was. No, David's nodding. Hello, David. It's lovely.
Okay.
David Purdy. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was in German by then. I don't think it's several of the songs were, but I'm not sure that one was before.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kirsten.
No, you're welcome. Anytime.
Thank you.
Kirsten, on that, the correspondence between Thomson and Beethoven, it's a wonderful correspondence. You're quite right. Beethoven, I think, more than once send words.
Yeah.
And for all of us listening tonight, when next time you're in the National Library of Scotland, George IV Bridge, there is one of the letters available. I've seen it, and Kirsten will have seen it too. Interestingly, Beethoven didn't speak English, and George Thomson had no German, so they corresponded in French. And it's very interesting to look at the letter, which you can see from Beethoven to Thomson, a beautiful hand and beautiful idiomatic Académie Française French from Beethoven himself.
Yeah.
And just one other point, Kirsten, quite agree with you about the Sathspé. Somebody said correctly, the stateliest measure ever molded by the mind of man.
Yeah.
And to hear the Red Rose sung to Major Graham of Inchbrackey, the estate, by the way, just outside Crieff in Perthshire, rather than low down in the Broom, is just a joy to me and to many others too. And P.S., thank God for Thomson being so obstropolous and difficult sometimes with Burns, because it meant that the correspondence between them is so much more illuminating of Burns.
So much more, yeah.
Had they agreed with everything, we would not have half the data that we have today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, it's thanks to Thomson we know so much about Burns's knowledge of songs and tunes and how he worked with. So it's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to work with that material. I mean, I'm never going to be finished with it, but you know, it's just a wonderful, wonderful treasure trove. And I'm really fond of Inchbrackey. You know, that's the my father recorded that that tune with Red Rose. You know, at a time when Low Down in the Broom was the only tune that anybody knew, really. So I'm very, very fond of that one also because of Dad. But Burns knew Low Down in the Broom. It, you know, was a contemporary 18th century song, and of course it fits the text beautifully. There's not, you know, it doesn't not fit the text, but it just does something different to it.
Yeah, no, you're right. And do you know what? For me, the thing is that when you hear it sung to Major Graham, you're impressed by how personalised the thing is. Yeah. Oh, my love's like a red rose. Yeah. You know, it's far more talking about the love that's inspired within Burns.
Yeah. And it's my love rather than just love in general, which it's more of with the Low Down in the Broom, which is also a cracking tune. I mean, we're lucky, aren't we? We've got fabulous tunes to choose from, so that's a good thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you again, Kirsten. Absolutely wonderful. But we really should move on with the rest of the programme. So I'm going to now key another. I'm going to key a song because we've just been talking about A Man's a Man for all that. Dougie has kindly done this as a video for us, and then after we're done with this, I'm going to get Gordon Johnson. Gordon, if you're ready to give us a piece after this, then that would be wonderful. But for now, let me see.
Is there for honest poverty that hangs his head and all that. The coward slave we passing by, we dare be poor for all that, for all that and all that, for toils obscure and all that. The rank is but the guineas stand, the man's a goat for all that. What though and daily fair we dine, we're hard and grey and all that, give fools their skills and knaves their wine. A man's a man for all that, for all that and all that. Their tinsel show and all that. The honest man, the world say poor, is king of men for all that. You see young Berkeley called a lord, what struts and stairs and all that, though hundreds worship at his word, he's but a coof for all that, aye, for all that and all that, his red and star and all that, the man of independent mind. He looks and laughs at all that. A prince can make a belted knight, a Marquis Duke and all that, but an honest man's aboon his mind. Get faith, he munna fall that, aye, for all that and all that, their dignities and all that, the pathful sins and pride o' word are higher rank than all that, and let us pray that come it may, as come it will, for all that sense o' worth are o'er the earth, shall bear the greed and all that, for all that and all that, it's coming yet, for all that man to man the world shall brothers be, for all that, aye, for all that and all that, it's coming yet, for all that man to man the world shall brothers be, for all that.
Well done.
Very good, Dukes.
Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. Me and my three brothers there.
Aye. It wasn't good enough seeing you once.
Happy smiley face there, wasn't it?
I'm glad you got over that cold anyway.
It's seen the state of my nose. It was a Rudolph. Gotta lay off the wine.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So we'll get Gordon up just now, and then after that, what about Ken? Would you like to give us your pleasure after Gordon? Wonderful. Good stuff.
Right, folks. Carney, I'm going to do the third epistle to John LaPrake, which was obviously written round about harvest time. Good speed and further to you, Johnny. Good health, hail hands and weather bonny. And new year nicking doon foo canny, the staff o' breed. Me ne'er one a stoup of brandy to clear your heat. Me Boris never thresh your rigs or kick your rickles off their legs, saying the stuff for mules and hags, like driving rock. But may the top me's grain that wags come to the sack. I'm busy tea and scalping at it, but bitter dodging sures he wat it. See my all stumpy pen, I got it with muckle whack. I took my joke leg and wat it, like ony clerk. It's new 12 months that I'm your debtor, for your braw, nameless, dateless letter, abusing me or harsh ill nature on holy men, while a deal of hear yoursel you're better, but mere profane. But let the kirk folk ring their bells. Let's sing about our noble selves. We'll cry in the jade for heathen hills to help or rouse us. But Brewster wives and whisky stills, they are the muses. Your friendship, sir, I want to quote it. And if you mark objections at it, then Han and Knave someday will note it in witness talk. And when Uskaba will wat it, it winna brock. But if the beast and branks be spared, till Kai began without the herd, and all the victual in the yard of take it recht. I mean your Ingleside to geared, die winternacht. Then muse inspire and aquavity shall make us baith, say blithe and witty. Till you forget you're old and gauty, and be as conty as you were 9 years less than 30, sweet yin and 20. But the stooks are coped with a blast, and now the sin keeks out the worst. Then I'm and run among the nest, and quat my chanta. Say I subscribe myself in haste. Yours, Rob Duranta.
Very good. Brilliant, Gordon. Well done. Dan and Gordon, lovely, lovely, lovely. So I'm going to get Ken to give us his pleasure next, and after that, Kev, if you have the means, would you like to give us our next piece of entertainment after Ken? So, Ken, what's your pleasure?
Okay. Well, I thought it might be appropriate tonight to have the Ronalds of the Bennells. In Tarbowton, you ken, there are proper young men and proper young lassies and all, man. But ken ye the Ronalds that live in the Bennells? They carry the grief frae them all, man. Their fathers a laird and weel he can spare-'t, braid money to tocher them all, man. To proper young men, he'll clink in the hand, gowd guineas, 100 or 2, man. There's ane they call Jean, I'll warrant you've seen as bonny a lass or as braw, man. But for sense and good taste, she'll vie with the best, and a conduct that beautifies all, man. The charms of the men, the langer they shine, the mere admiration they draw, man. While peaches and cherries and roses and lilies, they fade and they wither awa, man. If you be for Miss Jean, tak this frae a friend, the hint to a rival or twa, man. The laird of Black Byre would gang through the fire if that would entice her awa, man. The laird of Braeheat has been on his speed for mair than a townland or twa, man. And the laird of the Ford will stracht on a board if he canna get her at all, man. Then Anna comes in, the pride o' our kin, the boast of our bachelors, oh man. Sae sonsy and sweet, sae fully complete, she steals our affections, oh man. If I should detail the pick and the wail of lassies who live here of all man, the fault would be mine if they didn't shine, the brightest and best of them all, man. I lower myself, though I darna will tell. My poverty keeps me in awe, man. For making of rhymes and working at times does little or nothing at all, man. Yet I wouldna choose to let her refuse, nor hate in her power to say no, man. For though I be poor, unnoticed, obscure, my stomach's as proud as the maw, man. Though I canna ride in wheel-booted pride, or flee o'er the hills like a craw, man, I'll hud up my heat with the best of the breed, though fluttering ever sae braw, man. My coat and my vest are Scotch of the best. The pairs of good breeks I hate twa, man, and stockings and pumps to put on my stumps, and ne'er a rang steek in them all, man. O sarks I hae few, though 5 of them new, 1200 as white as the snow, man. A 10-shilling hat, a Holland cravat. There are no money poets, say braw, man. I never had friends weel stocked in means to leave me 100 or twa, man. Nay, we'll talk a dance to wait on the drance and wish 'em in hell for it all, man. I never was canny for hoarding of money, nor clochting it together at all, man. I've little to spend and nathan to lend, but devil a shilling I owe, man.
Outstanding, Ken, as ever. Absolutely outstanding.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
The delivery is just so engaging. It really is. It really is.
You're
Wonderful.
kind. Thank you.
Not at all. Alec Baird, I'm going to call upon you after Kev, if that's okay with you. Grand. Lovely stuff. I almost thought for a second there that you had a saxophone, Kev.
I think it's a bass clarinet.
Be better if I switch it on. How's that?
Aye, that's definitely more lively.
Technology, eh? That's better.
Turn the bass clarinet on.
Right. Yeah, about 2008, 2009, Cammy and I independently had this idea to write a one-man show to celebrate Burns' anniversary in 2009, not knowing that the other was doing it. And we came together, strangely enough, and did a double performance at Bow Hill later that year. You remember that one, Cammy? Aye.
I do indeed, aye.
And at that point, I started to look at lesser-known Burns songs, and kind of since then, I've made it a mission to try and dig out some of the obscure ones. However, with this audience, that's probably not an issue any. You probably know them all as it happens. This is written to Rothy Murchie's Rant, and it's one of the 24 that he wrote for Jean Lorimer, who became his Chloris, the fair-haired lassie. And in my humble opinion, this is probably the best of the 24, because a lot of them are not up to very much at all. They're certainly no Burns work. But this was written for one of his fellow excise officers as a kind of wooing thing for her. And he didn't have much luck in that behalf, but he came up with LVB songs, so I'll do this one for you. Lassie, with a lint white locks, bonny lassie, artless lassie, will you with me tend the flocks, and will you be my dearie, oh? As nature cleaves a flowery lea, and all is young and sweet like thee, so will you share his joys with me, and say you'll be my dearie, oh lassie, with a lint white locks, bonny lassie, artless lassie, will thou with me tend the flocks, and will thou be my dearie, oh? The primrose bank, the wimpling burn, the cuckoo on the milk-white fawn, the wanton lambs at early dawn shall welcome thee, my dearie, oh lassie, with a lint white locks, bonny lassie, artless lassie, will thou with me tend the flocks, and will thou be my dearie? And when the welcome summer shower has cheered a drooping little flower, well, through the breathing woodbine bough at sultry noon, my dearie, oh lassie, with a lint white locks, bonny lassie, artless lassie, will thou with me tend the flocks, and will thou be my dearie? When Cynthia lights with silvery ray the weary shearers homeward way, through yellow weaving fields we'll stray and talk of love, my dearie, oh lassie, with a lint white locks, bonny lassie, artless lassie, will thou with me tend the flocks, and will thou be my dearie? And when the howling wintry blast disturbs my lassie's midnight rest, and clasp it to my faithful breast, I'll comfort thee, my dearie, oh lassie, with the lint white locks, bonny lassie, artless lassie, will thou with me tend the flocks, and will thou be my dearie, oh.
First rate, Kev. First rate.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Outstanding. Really, really nice.
Thanks.
Alex, what do you fancy?
Thanks, Cammy, and thanks again for the evening. Thanks to Kirsten for tremendous Immortal memory. It really was superb. And I was reflecting back to thinking what to do tonight to our last time together at St Andrew's time and David's exceptional Immortal memory. And on the same night, you and I, Cammy, had a shot at Lewis and Caesar, the Twa Dogs, helped by Will, of course, to top and tail them. And I was reflecting again on this Burns, the man, the ploughman, the farmer, latterly the excise man, but the guy who would go to Edinburgh and yet hold his own in amongst great company. And the challenge of that. And I was trying to think, and I cast my mind back a long time, and just by sheer coincidence, when we were talking earlier on tonight, David Purdy mentioned Professor Dougal Stewart, and there was an occasion when Burns was with Dougal Stewart. I picked it up in my Burns book, and the little song, little poem is called On Meeting with Lord Dare. And I'll just read you just a few lines, just a short explanation. It says, the Lord Dare here was Basil William Douglas Hamilton, the second son of the fourth Earl of Selkirk. He was a guest of Professor Dougal Stewart at Katrine when the poem met him at the dinner referred to. Of the verses Burns wrote to Dr. Mackenzie 2 days afterwards, they were really extempore, but a little corrected since. This, I suspect, was a little bit contrived, this little song, but it's always stuck with me a wee bit. Let me share with you Burns' thoughts on what he says is his first occasion when meeting with a lord and meeting with Lord Dare. This, what you all whom it concerns, I, Rhymer Robin, alias Burns, October 23rd, one ne'er to be forgotten day. Sae far I sprackled up the brae, I dinnered wi' a lord. I've been at drucken writers' feasts, no, been bitch fou wi' godly priests, oh, wi' reverence be it spoken. I've even joined the honoured jorum where mighty squaships of the quorum their hydra drifted sloken. But wi' a Lord, stand out my shin, and Lord appear an Earl's son, up higher yet my bonnet, and sick a Lord, lang Scotch elves twa, where peerage here looks ama, as I look o'er my sonnet. But oh, for Hogarth's magic power to see our bardies William glower, and how he stared and stammered when Govan, as we led with branks, or stumping on his pluming shanks, he in the parlour hammered. I, sidling, sheltered in a nook, and at his lordship steal to look, like some portentous omen, except good sense and social glee, and what surprised me, modesty, I marked not uncommon. I watched for symptoms of the great, the gentle pride, the lordly state, the arrogant assuming, the fainter pride. Nae pride had he, nor sauce nor state that I could see, ony mere than an honest bloomin'. And from his lordship I shall learn henceforth to meet with unconcern. One ranks as weel's another. Nae honest, worthy man need care to meet with noble, youthful Lord dear, for he but meets a brother. Thank you.
Well done, Alex. Well done. I love that poem. I think it's a nice counterpoint to the many poems that show his radical side. Where he shows that if a man has worth, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Nice counterpoint to Burke's Cod Lords and what have you.
Yes.
Because of course, Lord Dare was he was president of the Friends of the People in Edinburgh. He was an enlightened gentleman himself.
Gae bring to me a pint o' wine, and fill it in a silver tassie, that I may drink before I go, a service to my bonny lassie. The boat rocks at the pier o' Leith, full loud the wind blaws fae the ferry. The ship rides by the Berwick Law, and I maun leave my bonny Mary. The trumpet sounds, the banners fly, and the glittering spears are ranked ready. The shouts o' war are heard afar, the battle closes, deep and bloody. It's no the roar o' sea on shore would mak me langer wish to tarry, nor shouts o' war that's heard afar. It's leaving thee, my bonny Mary.
Very good. Very good, Charlie. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Bobby.
Evening. It's a great pleasure to be with so many good friends, both old friends and new ones. Thank you for your company. I'm going to give you a song tonight, but you'll be hell of a pleased I'm not going to sing it. I'll recite the lyrics because I'm not a singer.
That was a near miss.
To me, this ranks up with the best Burns love songs. He was recently married to Jean and he was preparing Ellisland for their married life together. There's a hill just south of Newcomnock that's you can see if you're doing this Dumfries area, and obviously Jean was further up at Mauchline, and it is of course Parnassus Hill. Oh, where I on Parnassus Hill, or had a hillock on my fill, that I might catch poetic skill to sing how dear I love thee. But noth mun be my muse's well, my muse mun be thy bonny cell, and course and cone I'll glower and spell, and write how dear I love thee. Then come, sweet muse, inspire my lay, for all the lee lang summer's day. I couldna sing, I couldna say how much, how dear I love thee. I see thee dancing on the green, thy waist sae jimp, thy limbs sae clean, thy tempting lips, thy roguish sheen. By heaven and earth, I love thee. By night, by day, I feel at hame. The thoughts of thee my breast inflame, and I amuse and sing thy name. I only live to love thee. Though I were doomed to wander on, beyond the sea, beyond the sun, till my last weary sand was run, till then, and then, I love thee. Thank you.
Lovely, Bobby. It's one of my own favourites. I love Parnassus Hill. I think it's a wonderful work.
I didn't sing it, Cammy.
No, but I mean that just it talks to the strength of Burns's poetry. Even something that's conceived as a song comes across wonderfully well as as spoken word too. So, Jim, off you.
Normally I do things that are maybe more light-hearted, but all my props are up on top of the wardrobe there for doing nonsensical stuff. So I'll give you a wee poem. It's actually not a Burns poem, but the sentiment is Burns walking out after his shift in the fields as a ploughman and meeting a young girl. So hope this meets with everyone's approval. By W.D. Cocker. The ploughmen hae loused, their day's dark is hour, and hame comes a hofflin, as hungry as fower. Weel wabbit is he, but he's young and he's cheery, and yince he has suppit, forgets that he's weary. The yet swings a hint him, he's out again roaming, and walks down the glen, in the quait o' the gloamin'. His horns and his pooches, he aimlessly donners, alang where the wee burnie windingly wanders, for the rowan trees grow, and the brackens are few, and the white tail o' rabbits hap smert for his view. There, the lilt o' a sang puts an end to his rammels. Was this but a young lassie, gathering brambles? A stranger bit lass, new out for the toon, that's easy jaloused by the cut o' her goon. A freen o' wee Kirsty's, doon by at the brig, and faith, but she's bonny, and busket food trig. The Hofflin stones glowering like some muckle stirk, and minds at last Sabbath she sat in the kirk. Sae blithely she sings, and she kens na he's near, then sudden she sees him, and skellochs in fear. The Hofflin is blate, but to quait her alarm, tells her he's serving up by at the farm. Sae blithely she sings. Oh God. Wait, who's down the branches, our heach for our hone? Oh, I'm sorry about this. I'm drinking apple juice too tonight.
I'm sorry I can't help you, Jim.
No, I should have had my wee book out there already. Sae blithely she sings, and she kens na he's near, and sudden she sees him, and skellochs in fear. The Hofflin is blate, but to quait her alarm, tells her he's serving up by at the farm. He speers gin he'll help her. She doesna say aye, but she doesna say no, and he kens that she's shy. Sae blithe to the task, the braw Callan he yokes. And the lassie taks hurt, and laughs fine at his jokes. He poos down the branches, our heach for her horn, and the basket is full, ere the daylicht has gone. Then he wishes that basket was big as a cart. It's then the bit lass on a thorn gets a scart. And to look for the wound that is half make-believe, he taks her wee loof in his great muckle nieve. They ston close together, but nae thorns to be seen. But he still hods her hon, and he keeks in her een. Then a queer stoom goes through him, he ne'er felt before, and a tenderness creeps to his very heart's core. There's a hush in the glen, where the dusk draws a screen. There are stars in the sky, there's a star in her een. Then she raises her moo, and he kens what is bliss, as his lips meet hers in his first lover's kiss. And the Hoflin's a laddie nae mair, he's a man, and it's aye been the same since the world first began. Thank you.
Oh, outstanding, Jimmy.
What's the title of that poem, Jimmy?
The Hoflin, Hauflin.
I was a wee bit slow getting my cocker book out there.
I saw you moving off there, Ian. Thanks for that. Oh, well done, Bobby. All right.
I see there's one or two got their hands in their cocker before the end of that.
Lowering the tone again.
Well done, Jimmy.
Sorry about the blip. I hadn't done that one for quite a while.
That was fascinating. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cocker did some good stuff, actually.
Yeah.
He's a grand poet, Cocker.
Aye. Now, David, we'll get you to toast the lassies for us, and Jim, perhaps you could come up with something suitable to soothe the breast afterwards.
Everybody, what a great pleasure to be asked to give this toast tonight and to follow Kirstine's excellent immortal memory. What I brought with me is some images from our National Archives, some from the Institute of Advanced Studies where I'm based, and some from the family, to illustrate this rather important sector of our economy, can I put it that way. A toast to the lassies. Let me see if I can advance the slide. Yeah, it's not advancing. Cammy, what I need to do to advance here.
Yeah, I think perhaps that should be you now.
Ah,
yeah,
there we
go. There we are. Yep.
Cammy, on the right of my screen, I'm still seeing thee and me and other.
Yeah, I shouldn't worry about that, David. I think most people are seeing the same. But,
we're seeing the
We
image.
can see your slides, David. We can see them nice and clearly.
Yes.
I'm fed up looking at myself. I'm trying to. There we go. Okay. You still see the image?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure. I think we should go right back to the very beginning. We are told, I understand, on infallible authority by the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 21, that the Lord caused a sleep to come upon Adam. And from the rib of him, he took a rib, and with that he created a woman and brought her unto the man. Thus it was us first, boys, and them second. Nonsense, said the poet Burns, correctly. All nature swears, the lovely dears, her noblest work she classes o. Her prentice hand she tried on man, and then she made the lassies o. And that is probably the correct sequence. Where would we be without them in all aspects of our lives and work and everything else? And in fact, femininity is all around us. And to go right back to the first of the great cities of Europe, which had an enlightenment, it was, of course, this city. This is Leo von Klentz's famous image of Athens at the absolute apogee of her imperial power in the 5th century. This is Periclean Athens, superintended, as you can see, on the top of the Acropolis was the great Athene, the great lady of Athens. Of course, here we are in Edinburgh, in the Athens of the North, but I have to tell you that I have yet to find any Greek prepared to describe his capital city here as the Edinburgh of the South. But in the Acropolis, there were several temples, one of which was to Gaia. The Greeks missed nothing out in their mythology. There was a lady goddess of the earth itself. And many years ago, one of our colleagues in science, this wonderful man, James Lovelock, conceived the idea of the Gaia hypothesis, that the earth was actually alive, that it was a living integral being and would respond to our investiture in it and our actions upon it. And these actions that we are seeing now, and I don't have to repeat them to you, you all know what they are, will have to be attended to quickly, or there are going to be consequences for our next generation. But Gaia is always female. Gaia is the goddess of this planet of ours, imagined and envisaged many, many times by artists, trying to bring to life this concept that we are in the presence of a living female organism. Beautifully photographed here by Jack Schmidt, famously. This is the blue marble, one of my favorite images from the Apollo 17 moonshot back in 1972, Earthrise, showing the Western Hemisphere upon which we sit and meet this evening. And not just the globe itself, not just the terra firma, not just the earth itself is female, but so are we. Remember that our own country here is Scotia, and in Latin, Scotiae, feminine. And the other title for us, of course, Caledonia, Caledoniae, feminine, the old Kingdom of Scotland. I love this image, by the way, because if we stay with NASA for a moment, this was a present to a group of us who were invited over there to discuss our medical research results with the NASA research team at Houston, Texas, at the Johnson Space Flight Center. And this was the present for myself and one of England to our two English colleagues with us. It's wonderful, taken from 190 miles up by the Space Shuttle Discovery. You can see the border down at the bottom of the image, a bank of cloud over England to the south, a massive cloud out to the northwest, and all the way up to the Shetlands. This includes all of Scotland. This is Scotia. This is our home, our female home. Beautifully described once in the great Lay of the Last Minstrel by Sir Walter Scott, whose 250th anniversary we celebrate this very year. O Caledonia, stern and wild, meet nurse for a poetic child. Land of dark heath and shaggy wood, land of the mountain and the flood, what mortal hand could e'er untie the filial band that unites us to thy rugged strand? Hail, Caledonia, Caledonia, hail. And not just the country and the earth itself, but also the institutions we belong to. This is my own home institution, where Christine herself is a professor. This is the University of Glasgow, 570 years old this very year. And here I was a medical student more than a few years ago, but we don't call our college or our university our almus pater, our bountiful father. It's our alma mater. Again, we go for the feminine. It is our bountiful mother from which we derive so much. And having shown Glasgow, we better show Edina as well. Here, on the bottom left of this image, you can almost see my little house in the new town of Edinburgh. We're looking straight up the great three streets, Queen Street, George Street, Princess Street of the new town, and on the right, the old town of Edinburgh. In the distance, Arthur Seat, and then out in the distance, the Firth of Forth, and beyond it, this coastline, ghostly in outline of the Kingdom of Fife. Edina, Scotia's darling seat, one of the worst poems that Burns ever wrote. Burns, like many other great poets, hated having to write to order, but he had to do it at the behesting of his friends. And in fact, perhaps honest of Dundas, although we're not sure about this. Edina, Scotia's darling seat. Well, it's best consigned to the dustbin, or perhaps even worse. This is Scotia's darling seat by the very wonderful firm of Armitage and Shanks of the mid-19th century. It shows that Armitage and Shanks had a fair amount of critical ability in literature. because if you could see inside the this receptacle, you would see it's called the Edina, the Edina, Scotia's darling seat. Actually, that very mention of Armitage Shanks brings automatically to mind the Burn Supper years ago in Mauchline, where the chairman got up famously and said, as you've all, I'm sure, heard this, but it's worth repeating. Right, gentlemen, he said, right, to let us understand, in 5 minutes, the haggis will be piped in by Archie Stewart for Kilmarnock. And in 5 hours, it'll be piped out again by Armitage Shanks of Barhead. So where do we find the ladies in Burns's life itself? Here's Sam Boff's famous painting of that, the day of Hansel, he called it. Burns was born on the 25th of January, as you all know. It was a Thursday in 1759. So the day of Hansel was, of course, for all our children and grandchildren to this day, the first Monday of the child's life. So the storm which blew Hansel in and Robin, as we heard beautifully sung earlier in that Strathspey, would have been on the 29th of January. An image called the Curtis Saturday Night shows his mum. This is the remarkable mother who looked after the 7 children. A good mother she was to Robert and to Gilbert here and to Agnes, the first of the children, in the cottage, sometime obviously in the early 60s before they went to Mount Oliphant. His mother died here in East Lothian. This is the only image, please correct me if I'm wrong, that I can find or that we have of Mrs. Burns Senior. She survived her poet son by no less than quarter of a century, dying in 1820, and is buried with Gilbert and others of the family in the kirkyard at Bolton. But it was down here at Lochley, and this is my favorite image of Lochley Farm as it was in the 1770s. They left Mount Oliphant, as you know, in 1777 to move here. And here the story really gets going. And we had a moment from this earlier, this famous painting of the young Burns musing about his future. Could he do it? Could he cut it? Could he produce language in English and in the great old Scots language, the Lowlands, as we call it at home in Ayrshire? Yes, indeed, he would. And he would be able to produce the most remarkable volume of verse at a very early age, thanks to the education which he had received episodically, but comprehensively from his father and others, and from John Murdoch, the English master at my old school of Ayr Academy. And this is one of the verses which come from the vision, where he imagines Kyla, his muse, his female muse, throwing her wrap around him and inspiring him to write in the Lowlands and in the English. Having his first love affairs with the ladies and gentlemen roundabout, first of all, perhaps this might be, I don't know, this may well be Elizabeth Peyton of Largyside. Note that the lady is carrying a cutty stool. It's obviously a milking stool, because the young Burns on the right here is carrying a pail for milk. They're going to the milking. But that cutty stool, and cutty, remember, in the old Lowlands means short, and it had 2 purposes. One was to milk the kye, and the other was to sit upon. And this is a great image. This is by David Allen. Presbyterian Presence, it's called. Correction, Presbyterian Penance. And the young man at top left here, this young farmer, is catching it at point blank range from the minister for his improper and ungovernable behavior, with down at the center here, this young lady weeping inconsolably below on the cutty stool note, and while on her lap, fast asleep, is the innocent result of their improper and intemperate union. And as I mentioned to some of the boys before, you have to feel sorry for this guy. You really have to feel sorry for him up on the top left. Not only is he getting it from the minister with both barrels, but his day's not over. Here's her mother. Look at the body language here. This young man is not home yet, and before he gets home, he's going to get another set of barrels from this wonderful lady shown here. And not just ladies of the human race, but also females of any race, was meat and grist to our poet's life and work. Here is a reenaction of the ploughing of the mouse at Moskeel in November 1784, famously caught by the post office eventually in 1959, when the post office finally woke up to the presence of a genius in our midst. We slaket Corin timmer speast. Och, what a panic's in thy breastie. You needn't have stepped a wassy hasty with bickering battle. I would be loath to run and chase thee with mothering pack. Just for a moment, let us just go back one to, there is John Blaine being represented by the farmer's son here in the middle of this image. He's holding the pattle. And the pattle, of course, was the stick, which was either of wood or of steel, used to resharpen the plowshare during plowing operations, and was routinely used to dispatch any vermin which were disturbed during the plowing process. And also not even smaller than the mouse itself, in the kirk at Mauchline. Oh, would some poor the gifty gies to see ourselves as others see us. It would fae many a blunder free us and foolish notion. Burns here on the right of this image, looking forward to the young lady in front with her bonnet, upon which is crawling an example of what is known in the medical world as a pediculus capitis. But of course, the great celebration of women in Burns comes from the great love songs. Nothing quite like this. This is Sir David Wilkie's imagination of the scene from Burns's great song of meeting. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy. There are hundreds of songs on that subject, but two, for my mind, at the very top of the Premier Division. One is Burns here. Yestreen went to the trembling string, the dance gayed through the lichted hall. To thee my fancy took its wing. I looked, but neither heard nor saw, till this was fair and that was braw, and yon the toast of other tune. I sighed and said, among them all, you aren't a Mary Morris. That, for my mind, is the top of the Premier Division. Only one comes close, and it comes from America, from South Pacific. Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. You may see a stranger across a crowded room, but somehow you know, even then, you're going to see her again and again. Wonderful songs of meeting. And in fact, the song that Burns wrote was for the girlfriend of the time. But I understand, and maybe others can correct me, but I understand that she became Mary Morrison in the song because the actual name of the young lady of the moment was Ellison Begbie. And not even a poet of Burns's lambent genius could do anything with that. Songs of meeting, songs of parting. Fare thee weel, thou first and fairest. Fare thee weel, thou best and dearest. Thine be ilka joy and treasure, love, contentment, joy and pleasure. Saying goodbye as he did in that letter from Sanquhar up to Edinburgh to say goodbye to MacLehose forever. And the way he wrote for the female voice is wonderful. Women are blessed in many ways, not least by the fact that our great poet wrote for them. Many of the Burns songs are not meant to be sung by men. John Anderson, my Jo, John, when we were first acquaint, your locks were like the raven, your bonny brew was brent, but now that brew is bell, John, your locks are like the snaw, but blessings on your frosty pow, John Anderson, my Jo. And many a day, John, many a canty day we've had with one another. Now we must totter doon, John, but doon the hill we'll go and sleep together of the fit. John Anderson, my Jo. I don't know who these two are. I found this in the National Archive, but I couldn't resist it. All of us who have had grandparents recognize this. Look at them, obviously married for half a century or more. She with her grey bun at the back of her head, and he with his stick at his side. A wonderful image of ancient and enduring love together. But young women too feature in the story. And I commissioned this painting from Peter Naismith, who is the head of art at Stuart's Melville, one of our great schools in Edinburgh. And this is Jenny Cruikshank at her harpsichord in St. James's Square. And this vision is not conjectural. It is an eyewitness account from a visitor to the Cruikshank's house, where Burns was lodging on his second winter in Edinburgh. And he looked around the corner and he saw Burns at the table strewn with papers, Jenny at the harpsichord. She was a fine singer as well as a harpsichordist, only 13 years old at the time. And what was heard was the tune being played over and over and over again as Burns was seeking to marry the words to the air itself, which he did with a facility which astonished musicians for then and now. Beethoven, Haydn, Felix Mendelssohn, who set his words to music later, must always have wondered about this. Was it really true that Burns had no training in musical theory or the practice of composition, yet he was able to make that marriage, that sensuous, indeed sensual marriage between the words and the air to produce a song? That sensuality of the union being first articulated beautifully by Monteverdi 4 centuries ago. So this was the way they worked through that second winter in Edinburgh. And I always wondered, what happened to Jenny? She falls out of the Burns story in the biographies. She was only 13. She must have gone on to have more of a life later. And indeed she did. It took us 5 years to find her. She married a man called James Henderson in Jedburgh. He was a lawyer in Jedburgh in the Borders. They raised a large family together. And she is buried here in the kirkyard of Jedburgh Abbey. And when I found the stone, after that long hunt, such a sadness to see that the writing had been effaced by 160 years of acid rain and wind, but it was granite. It was Aberdeen granite. It'll last forever. And so I had a phone call with Alistair Hutton, an old friend who is then the chairman of Borders Region. And I said, Alistair, where do I start? There's all manner of permissions are going to be got. She lies in consecrated ground. I don't know any member of the family who's still alive who can help, but I want to restore this. And Alistair wonderfully said what many politicians should say. He said, David, listen to me. This is what you do. You find a painter in Jedburgh, you tell him what's required, you pay him, and if anybody objects to what you're going to do, refer them to me. Wonderful. 2 weeks later, that, as you see now, had become this. This is her husband, James Henderson, and his wife, Jean Cruikshank. Interestingly, an S on the end of Cruikshank, which is not in most of our biographies. She lived to be 60 years old. She raised a large and a successful family. And her son, who put this up, was a surgeon in Berwick. And he, in a letter which we've seen some time ago, reported that in her last hours, his mother, as she was failing, recalled with quiet pride that the childhood that she had had in her father's house of Edinburgh had been enlivened by the poet Burns, and that she was the rosebud, because the reward for her help with her harpsichord was the Rosebud by My Early Walk and a copy of the second edition of Burns's poems. Another lady we don't need to go into any further great detail, admired by us all. Her widowhood lasted 1 year longer than the poet's life itself. Jean Armour Burns was a wonderful wife and mother to him. He was very lucky to have her, and we treasure her memory to this day. And we heard earlier about Isabel, wonderful. One of the very first photographs ever taken in Scotland by David Octavius Hill and his technician, James, I'm blocking on it, that's come back to me. They discovered, James Adamson, correct, that's right. Hill and Adamson found that Isabel Burns was alive and well in her cottage on the Belle Isle estate just south of Ayr. And they went down, we understand, to the brand new station at Haymarket, long before Waverley was built. and took the railway train through to Glasgow, took the South Western Railway down to Ayr, hired a carriage, went down to Belial Park and interviewed her and photographed her in bright sunshine at her cottage door. We are told that she much resembled her brother when she was younger. So what you're seeing now, remember, is a posed photograph of Robert Burns's wee sister. And we have now in front of us what the poet just might have looked like had he been spared beyond his 37 years. Coming towards the end now, one thoughts about some of the women that were involved with the poet and men with the poet. This is one of his friends. This is a lawyer from Edinburgh. This is John Clark of Eldon, famous advocate, later a judge of the Court of Session, but a great character. He knew Burns well, and he was also a great friend of Walter Scott. They were great claret men in those days, and just a little anecdote of him is worth repeating. After a night out with Walter Scott and others, Clark of Eldon went back to his residence here, number 12 Picardy Place here in Edinburgh. It's now 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and he tiddles at the pin. No doorbells in those days. An iron pin was set into a ring at the door, and you tiddled the pin to attract the attention of those inside. So he tiddles at the pin and tiddles at the pin, and eventually the door is opened by a servant lass, to whom the great lawyer said, "Lassie, is this the house of John Clark of Eldon, advocate?" Whereupon the girl said, "Oh, go on, sir, you're John Clark himself." Whereupon the great man said, "Lassie, I ken who I am," he said. "I'm asking you, is this my house?" Here's another house, and here's another Scottish lady whom we remember with pride. What you're looking at is the result of the third attack on Buckingham Palace in 1940, and the damage caused by the Luftwaffe, the king with his queen. She always represented herself all her life as British, and that was indeed constitutionally correct and proper, but she was one of us. She was the daughter of the Earl of Strathmore, born at Glamis Castle. And in the aftermath of this attack and the damage done to the palace, far more severe, by the way, than was ever made public at the time, she asked the king's permission to make a press release in her own name, the only time she did that in her own name in the entire course of the war. And it was terrific. It was just 3 lines, and it showed her ancestry in spades, because it had been suggested in the House of Commons and repeated in the press that given all this, that she should be sent with the royal princesses, Princess Margaret Rose and Princess Elizabeth, our present queen, for safety to Canada, where she would be safely beyond the reach of the enemy. And her press release was simple, and it ran, "The royal princesses will not leave this country without me. I will not leave this country without the king, and the king will never leave." There was no more talk of Canada. Also, I couldn't resist putting this in because the Queen Mother, as she became, features in an anecdote of this guy. This is Rabbi Joseph Hertz, who was the chief rabbi of Great Britain at the time that you have just been looking at the time the palace was bombed. And at a luncheon party at the palace, just after that bombing, Rabbi Hertz was a guest. And after lunch, the king said to him, Rabbi, you're a man of the world. You're our chief rabbi. What is your impression of the outcome, the likely outcome of this dreadful contest in which we are engaged with the Germans and the Italians and the Japanese? And Rabbi Hertz was a very intelligent and intellectually gifted man, former professor of philosophy in South Africa. And he also had that uniquely Jewish sense of humor, as you shall hear, because things were going very, very badly at that time in the war. This was May 1941. We had no allies. We were alone, holding off the enemy. And Rabbi Hertz said to the king, he said, Your Majesty, I do believe it will eventually be all right. I believe that with allies, we will get over and defeat these people. But Your Majesty, the way things are going at the moment, it might be prudent to put the empire in your wife's name. Finally, one personal moment, if I may. What a difference 50 years makes. After medical school in Glasgow, I had 2 years sailing the world with my mistress. It was a wonderful occasion. Thoroughly enjoyed it. My mistress was very beautiful. She was fast. And though one should never discuss a lady's weight in public, I am prepared to do so now. She weighed 49,000 tons. She was the Canberra. She was the flagship of the P&O line, and she carried a number of us Royal Naval Reserve officers as part of her complement of the ship's company. I miss her and remember her with huge pleasure. I also remember this guy as we come to the end with him, because this was our boss. All of us in the Navy had this man as our boss. This is Admiral of the Fleet, Sir Julian Oswald. He sounded rather English. He had a wonderfully pucker accent, but he was as Scottish as any of us. He was an Oswald of Auchencruive, the Auchencruive estate being just inland from Ayr and just a couple of miles from my old family home at Prestwick, where I grew up. And he was a wonderful fighting admiral of the old Royal Navy. I always imagined him on the bridge of his flagship in a battle, and the flag lieutenant coming up and saying, "Enemy in sight, sir." "Excellent. Your order, sir?" "Straight at him." "Straight at him, sir." He also took aim at the BBC, because the BBC had been describing his naval ships in the neuter, not in the feminine. We began with various objects and institutions which are intrinsically female. So are vessels. He wrote to the Times saying, "The Times, Mr. Editor, sir, you have said that the HMS Ark Royal, my aircraft carrier, will shortly return from its deployment in the Mediterranean to its base at Portsmouth. It will not. She will return from her deployment in the Mediterranean to her base at Portsmouth. Ships are feminine. Sharpen up. Yours sincerely." When the Queen launched the Ark Royal, he said, she said, you know what she said? She said, "May God bless her and all who sail in her." She did not say, "May God bless it and all who sail in it." No more, if you don't mind. And then they sent an interviewer to attack the Admiral. The BBC sent a lady interviewer who said to him famously, "Admiral, why are ships to be feminine? Why do you insist on this femininity about all ships?" And he stopped and he said, "Madam, simply because ships and women share one utterly central key characteristic." And of course the interviewer said, "And what might that be, Admiral?" And he smiled and he said correctly, "They are both wonderful." And so was she, and I finished with her. Thanks to the FBI, much in the news this evening for other reasons that won't detain us. This is the FBI's regression of Jean Armour, which we carried out some years ago to the age of 28 from the old paintings of the old lady, the year that she married Burns. What a pleasure to be with you all tonight in absentia at the Bachelors Club at Tarbowton. Ladies and gentlemen, oh no, sorry, with the exception of the ladies present. Gentlemen, charged lassies, be upstanding and join me in the traditional second toast of the Burns supper. Gentlemen, the lassies.
The lassies.
The lassies.
The lassies.
Can I just say how wonderful it was to see everyone's tummy?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good evening, everyone. Great to be with you all. Great to see so many familiar faces, and absolutely amazed by the Burns supper tonight, bringing all these wonderful people together. Kirstine, thank you very much for your immortal memory. It was wonderful. and I, like you, share a great love of Burns' songs as opposed to his poems. So I'm going to sing you a wee song tonight. And like Cammy, and I suppose like yourself, when you've done this great thing, Kirsty, you've got this new Burns with over 300 songs that he wrote. I just find it hard to believe that I only know, what, 87 of them. That's all. Honestly, I only know 87 Burns songs, but I'm willing to learn more. I've got a lot to learn. The one I'm going to sing for you tonight is a lesser known song, because I watched Cammy on his New Covenant speech, and he was talking about the need for us to learn new songs. The ones we hear every year, every Burns Suppers, it's the old familiar. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They're good. We love them. But here's one tonight that many of you might not know, but it was written by Burns in appreciation of one of his friends called Alan Masterton when he lived through here in Edinburgh. Now, Alan was one of his Crookhall Fencible pals. Burns wrote the words, and the tune was actually written by Alan Masterton himself. And not only did he write this song for Burns, but when Burns was doing the Scots Musical Museum, Alan wrote three or four of the tunes for him for that. And this song is about Alan Masterton's daughter, who's called Anne. It's called Beware of Bonnie Anne. And it goes something like this. Ye gallants bright, I read you right, beware of Bonnie Anne. Her comely face, sae full of grace, her heart ye will trep on. Her even sae bright, like stars by night, her skin is like the swan. Say gently dress ye gently waist, that sweetly ye might span. Youth, grace, and love, attendant move, and pleasure leads the van. In all their charms and conquering arms, they wait on Bonnie Anne. The captive bands may lead the hands, but love enslaves the man. Ye gallants brow, I rede you woe, beware of Bonnie Anne. Thank you very much.
Well done, Jim.
Well done, Jim.
Thank you, Cammy. Thank you.
Outstanding. Good stuff. Welcome along.
Aye, thank you very much, Cammy. Thank you again for asking me along. Hello, everybody. It's great to see you. So it is. Anybody that doesn't ken me, Bobby Jess says you're awful lucky. So you're. It was great, Bobby Jess getting that big clap at the end of his poems, the lovely Parnassus Hill, a good New Covenant. And I think we were more clapping because he didn't sing than what he had just because he had done his poem. But as I say, absolutely fantastic to be here. I'm in my digs yet. I'm working Dumfries 2 or 3 days a week in the winter. So I'm still doing in Dumfries, just across from Swinton in that kind of area. So so my internet keeps going on and off and on and off. So I've been tooting to tell the neighbours it's time they were away out of walk and leave the internet alone so I can stay on. And of course I'm not at home there at which is maybe a good thing because before I come away, just a wee quick poem before I get started in Burns, I said to the wife, "Gonna put the cat out? It's not that much to ask. Gonna put the cat out? It's no that big a task. Gonna put the cat out. It's all that I desire. You gonna put the cat out for the bloody things in fire. Great to be here. I'm great to get on before Ian Butte, before he steals my poem. Because he done it with me last week, the other Bachelors Club thing. So I'll do it with him this week, and I'll give you the address to Beelzebub. One of my favourites. Long life, my lord, and health be yours, and scathed be Hunger's Highland boars. Lord, grant me duddy desperate beggar with Dick, claymore or rusty trigger. Me twin old skull in your life, for she light, aye, as lambkins like a knife. Faith, you and Apple Cross were richt to keep the Highland hounds in sicht. I doubt na thee would bid me better than letting them in suit air the water. They're up among the lakes and seas, they'll mark with laws and rules that please. Some daring Hancock or a Franklin will set their Highland blood their ankling, or some Washington again may head them, or some Montgomery fearless lead them to God knows what may be effective when by their heads and hearts directed. Pair dunghill sons o' dirt and mire, may patrician rights inspire me sage north now, me sage of Sackville to watch the premier ere the Parkville. But where will ye get Howes and Clintons to bring them to their right repentance and cow the rebel generation and bring them to their right repentance? For they be damned, what recht had they to meet or sleep or licht a day far less to riches, poor or freedom, but what your lordship lights to give them. But here, my lord, Glengarry here, your hands are licht in them, I fear. Your factors, trustees, gillies, bailies, I cannae say, but they do gaily. They lay aside all tender mercies and turl their hullions to the bursies. Yet while they're only pound and heret, they'll keep that stubborn Highland spirit, but smash them, crush them all to spales and rot the divers aye the jails. The young dogs swings them to the labour, let work and hunger drive them sober. And the hizzies, if they're oak like Fossin, let them in Drury Lane be lessened, or if the wife's and dirty brats come thinging at your doors and yets, flapping with duds and grey with bees, frickening away your jucks and geese. Get out your horsewhip or your jowler, the longest thong, the fiercest growler, and guard the tartar gypsy pack with all the bastards on their back. Come on, my lord, for I long to meet ye, and in my house at hame to greet ye. With common folk ye shannae mingle, the ben misnook beside the ingle, at my recht hand beside your seat, between Herod's hip or Polycrete, or if you on your station Taro, between Alamagra and Pizarro a seat. And I say you well deserve it, and until you come, your humble servant, Beelzebub. Thank you.
Brilliant, Willie. Brilliant. Outstanding.
Oh, he wasn't bad.
He wasn't all that good.
So no do that one tonight.
No, you'll need to choose another new Ian.
Aye, Ian, do it right.
Ian, would you give us your pleasure?
Okay, never. I was going to say there's been Strathspey's mentioned once or twice tonight, and I suddenly remembered that one of the dances I do are the Hinoki Bossa Nova, there's actually a couple of Strathspey steps in it. So it gets in everywhere. We'll do a shortish one to William Stewart. In honest Bacon's Inglenook, there man I sit and think, sick o' the world, and world's folk, and sick, and damned sick o' drink. I see there is nae help, but still do I mun sink. So someday lay enough a yelp, way worth that cursed drink. Yestreen, alas, I was sae fou, I could but yisk and wink. And now this day, sair a rue, the weary, weary drink. Now, Satan, I feel thy sooty claws, I hate thy brownstone stink, and I curse the luckless cause. The weary, wicked soup o' drink, and vain I would forget my woes in idle rhyme and clink. For past redemption, damn, I can't do naught but drink. For you, my trusty, wheel-tried friend, may heaven still on you blink, and may your life flow to the end, sweet as a dry man's drink. Slashaba.
Very good.
Excellent, Ian. Very, very good.
Well done.
That's a new one on me. I haven't heard that one.
Years since I've done that one. Years and years.
Wonderful job. Wonderful. Billy Horn, have you
Hello.
something up your sleeve for us?
Uh-huh. For Rick now.
That would be grand. I don't mind doing something in the interim period if you want.
No, you're grand. Willie Simpson o Ochiltree wrote a letter to Birds praising him for the Holy Tilsha and or the Uncle Mourn for Tale or the Twa Herbs, whatever you want to call it. And we didn't have a copy of that letter, to my knowledge anyway. But this is Burns's reply to William Simpson of Ochiltree. I got your letter. Winsome Willie. With grateful heart, I thank you, brawly. Though I must say, I'd be silly and Uncle Vain should I believe my coaxing Billy, your flattering strain. But as believe you kindly meant it, I would believe to think you hint at ironic satire, sidelings, sglent it on my pair music. Though in sic phrasing terms you've penned it, I scarce excuse you. My senses would be in a creel, should I but dare, I hope to spiel wi' Allen or wi' Gilbertfield, the braes o' fame, or Ferguson, the writer chiel, a deathless name. Oh, Ferguson, thy glorious perts, ill-suited laws, dry musty earts, my curse upon your whin-stain hearts, your embry gentry. The tithe of what you wasted cares would stoud his pantry. Yet, when a tale comes in my head, or lassies gie my heart a screed, whiles they're like to be my deed, sad disease, I kettle up my rustic reed, it gies me ease. Old Kyla now may fidge fu fain, she's gotten bardies o' her ain, chills with her chanters when I hain, but tune their lays, till echoes all resound again her weel-sung praise. Nae poet thought her worth his while to set her name in measured style. She lay like some unkenned o' isle beside New Holland, or whar wild meeting ocean's bile, besooth Magellan. Ramsay and famous Ferguson gied forth in tea a lift a bin. Yarrow and Tweed to money a tune our Scotland rings. while Irwin, Lugar, Ayr and Doon. Nobody sings. The Lassies, Tiber, Thames and Seine glide sweet and mony a tuneful line. But Willie, set your fit to mine and cock your crest, we'll gar oor streams and burnies shine up with the best. We'll sing old Kylers, plains and fells, our moors, red brown with heather bells, our banks and braes, our dens and dells, where glorious Wallace, after the gree, as story tells for Southron bullies. Wallace's name, what Scottish blood, but biles up in a springtide flood. Aft our fearless feathers strode by Wallace's side, still pressing onward, reed wad shod, or glorious died. Oh, sweet are Kyla's haws and woods, when lintwhites chant among the buds, or jinking hares and amorous woods their loves enjoy, while through the groves the cushy croods with waeful cry. Even winter bleak has charms to me, when winds rave through the naked tree, or frosts on hills o' ochiltree are hoary grey, or blinding drifts wild furious flee, darkening the day. Oh, nature, all thy shows and forms to feeling pensive hearts charms, whether the summer kindly warms with light and life, or winter howls and gusty storms the lang dark night. The muse, nae poet ever fonder, till by himsel he learned to wander, adoon some trotting burns meander, and nae think lang. Oh, sweet to stray, or pensive ponder a heartfelt sang. The worldly race may drudge and drive, hog shooter, jundy, streach and strive. Let me fair nature's face describe, and I, with pleasure, shall let the busy, grumbling hive bum o'er her treasure. Like, farewell, my rhyme composing brother. We've been our lying unkent to other. Now let us put our heads together and love fraternal. May envy wallop at the tether, black fiend infernal. As healing men hate tolls and taxes, as moorland herds like gid fat braxes, while terra firma on our axis diurnal turns. Couldn't enough rein in faith and practice in Robert Burns. Postscript. My memory's no worth a preen. I'd almost forgotten clean. You bade me right with what they mean by this new licht, but what your herds say after been most like to fecht. In days when mankind were but callins, grammar, logic, and sic talents, they ta'en nae pains their speech to balance or rules to gie, but spak their thoughts and plain braid lallins, like you and me. In the old times they thought them in, just like a cerk or pair of shin, wore by degrees till her last round get past her viewing. Then, shortly after she was done, they got a new one. This pass for certain, undisputed. Ne'er came of their heads to do it, till Chiels got up and would confute it, and called it wrang. And muckle din there was about it, both loud and lang. Some herds weel learnt upon the butte, with 3 old folk the thing mistook, for 'twas the old man turned a new canoe to sicht, and then, Batlands coming to the look, she grew mair bricht. This was denied, it was affirmed, the herds and hirsels were alarmed, the reverend greybeards raved and stormed that beardless laddies should think they better were informed than their old daddies. For less the mair it gaed to sticks, for words and ace to clours and nicks, and many a fellow got his licks with hearty crunt, and some, to learn them for their tricks, were hanged and brunt. This game was played through many a land, and old lick gaddies bore sick hands till faith The youngsters took the sands with nimble shanks. Oh, faith, our lairds forbade sick bloody pranks. Nae doubt the old licht herds are bleating, their zealous hearts are vexed and sweeting. You'll even find them greeting with girl and spite to hear the moon sae sadly lead on by word and right. But shortly they will cow the loons. Some old licht herds for Niebertoons are meint in things they call balloons to take a flight and stay a month among the moons and see them richt. Good observation they will gie them, and when the old man's got to leave them, the hen mis-shared will take it with them, just to their pooch. And when the new licht billies see them, I think they'll crouch. So ye observe that all this clater is naething but a moonshine mater, and though dull prose folk Latin splatter with logic tulshe, I hope we bardies ken some better and mind sick browshe. Thank you.
Brilliant, Wally.
Wonderful.
Don't get the memory I used to hear.
Fantastic, Wally. Brilliant, Paul.
Brilliant. I've lost my...
Nothing wrong with your memory. Nothing wrong with your memory.
Outstanding.
Wonderful.
Superb. Superb.
Just inspired by having Helena join us, I thought I might give you the Lament of Mary Queen of Scots on the approach of spring, just because I know it's one of her favourites. So I thought I'd maybe give you this.
Can I thank you? Can I? Sorry to interject there, Cammy, but I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you so much for inviting me. And I just spoke to Jim briefly. I was on a cliff walk and I just came back and was cooking dinner. I made a brief phone call and he said that you were on YouTube tonight. And I said, oh, great, YouTube, could you send me the link? So I got myself showered and all ready and I thought I was pressing the link to YouTube.
You actually
died. I went, oh no, make sure I'm not got the camera on.
Oh, well, that's right. Since you're here anyway.
So my sincere apologies that I'm not attired for the evening, but I want to thank you and thank David for the brilliant Toast to the Lassies. Utterly brilliant, David. And also Kirsten is just absolutely fantastic. Was totally enthralled by her immortal memory.
This is to a melody that I discovered. You know, I went looking for a decent melody for the Lament of Mary Queen of Scots, because I never particularly pleased with the one which is most frequently heard, because it's half as long as it should be. If you look at the stanzas, they tend to be 8 lines long, and the melody is only 4 lines long. So I went looking for a melody, and this is one that I think fits it quite nicely. New nature hangs her mantle green on every blooming tree, and spreads her sheets o' daisies white out o'er the grassy lea. Now Phoebus cheers the crystal streams and glads the azure skies, but naught can glad the weary wight that fast endurance lies. Now lavrocks wake the merry morn, aloft on dewy wing. The merle in his noontide bower makes woodland echoes ring. The mavis mild wi' many a note sings drowsy day to rest. In love and freedom they rejoice, wi' care nor thrall oppressed. Now blooms the lily by the bank, the primrose doon the brae, the hawthorn's budding in the glen, and milk white as the sleigh, the meanest hind in fair Scotland may rove their sweets among. But I, the Queen o' Scotland, maun lie in prison strang. I was the Queen o' bonny France, where happy I hae been. Full lichtly rise I in the morn, as blithely down at e'en. And I'm the sovereign of Scotland, and many a traitor there. Yet here I lie in foreign bands and never-ending care. But as for thee, thou false woman, my sister and my fay, grim vengeance yet shall wear a sword that through thy soul shall gae. The weeping blood in woman's breast was never known to thee, nor the balm that drops on wounds of woe frae woman's pitying knee. My son, may kinder stars upon thy fortune shine, and may those pleasures gild thy reign that ne'er wad blink on mine. God keep thee free thy mother's face, or turn our hearts to thee. And where thou meet'st thy mother's friend, remember him for me. Oh, soon to me, me summer suns, nae mair licht up the morn, nae mair to me the autumn winds, wave o'er the yellow corn, and in the narrow house of death, let winter round me rave. And next the flowers that deck the spring bloom on my peaceful grave.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
Excellent.
Beautiful,
Excellent.
Cammy.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
First class.
Absolutely, Carrie.
Never heard that before.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Tammy, what's the tune?
You know, I don't know the name of the air, Kirsten.
Funny.
Yeah, it
It
is.
does work really well. It does work
Yeah,
really well.
yeah. I think it carries the message, I think, wonderfully well.
Yeah.
I found
Does
that
indeed.
it was a group called the Merry Wives of Windsor, I think. Quite a niche album from the 80s, I think. And they only did, I think, one or two verses of it and a refrain.
Right.
But I thought, no, that fits that
It
nicely.
works really nicely. No, thank you very much. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who, me? Right, here's one a friend of mine over in Kilburnie wrote, and it's about murmuration, the flight of starlings
Aye, yeah,
flying
yeah.
here and there, and it's called Aerial Miracle. Scarce could I believe my een, nae rarer sicht I'd ever seen, while leaning o'er a fairness gate to tak a break arranged by fate. Or so it seemed, for blessed was I to see descending from the sky upon a field of half-grown hay some 40 birds to gay display. For me to see or for their sale, I'll lay you pondering while I tell, as how as yin they flew wi' grace, up, down and forth, fae place to place. Then, calm amidst my soul's applause, pièce de résistance, aye, that it was. As watch I did each bird combine, with form and feather, all in line. In unison, their wings to flap, together soar, together drap. Nae chip computer, tab nor trigger, in beauty better, in mystery bigger. A magic carpet made o' birds, was rise and fall, inspire these words, in praise o' creatures synchronized. Here's something else I've realized. Though folk fire rockets upwards quick, they ken net whit mak birdies tick. Good to see you again.
And you, my friend.
Okay, well, I'm going to kick off the second half, as it were, with Callum. He's prepared a wee set for us, so you might want to turn your volume down again. I'll try and turn it down a wee bit at my end.
God, that was the cat. That was the cat.
Good man, Callum. Good man.
Lovely, lovely, lovely.
Well, I've never seen a James Bond villain squeeze his cat like that.
Right. However, there was a cat in there somewhere.
Kirsten had it.
Kirsten's cat.
Yeah, is her cat just, there's something about the pipes. And as soon as she hears the pipes, she just mental. She's sitting up
At least she didn't do it.
What do you call it, Kirsty?
What do I call what? The cat?
Aye.
Get off.
Yeah.
This is Twiggy. This is Twiggy. She's the younger of the
Twiggy.
two cats.
Oh.
Twiggy. Yeah.
You know, I've never been called that for about 33 years.
You surprised me.
I'm not good looking. I'm trying to grow another face really about this.
Kev Thompson, will you kick us off with a song?
Burns wrote this towards the end of his life and sent it off to Thompson. It's set to the Irish air Ballinara Ora, and totally out of character with Burns. He's praising the girls with the money instead of the girl with the good looks and the sexual appeal. And Thompson wrote back more or less saying, it's about time you learnt some common sense. You should go for the money instead of the good looks. I think Burns wrote it tongue in cheek, looking for some humour, but it's always hard to tell with him. So. A warrior, witchcraft, the beauty's alarms, the slender but beauty grasping your arms. Give me the lass that has acres of charms. I give me the lass with the wheel stocked firms. And hey for a lass we a talker. Hey for a lass we a talker. Hey for a lass we a talker. The nice yellow guineas for me. Love guineas. Your beauty's a flower in the morning that blows and withers the faster it grows. But the rapturous charms of the bonny green nose, they'll spring their new ticket with bonny white yellows. And hey for a lass we a talker. Hey for a lass we a talker. Hey for a lass we a talker. The nice yellow guineas for me. And in when his beauty your bosom is blessed, the brightest of beauties make hoy when possessed. But the sweet yellow darlings we Geordie impressed, the longer you hear them, the more they're caressed. And hey for a lass we a talker. Hey for a lass we a talker. Hey for a lass we a talker. The nice yellow guineas for me.
Very good.
Outstanding, Kev.
Thanks. A wee bit different.
It is. You know, I mean, I love the Irish melodies. I really do. You know, they're so pocky.
The thing with Burns is he saved so many melodies from extinction, basically, by putting words to them. And as he says himself, sometimes the ones weren't all that wonderful, but at least it saved the melody, you know.
Well, see, that's it. I mean, that was the point of the musical museum for me.
Aye.
I mean, we tend to think of it as a songbook now, but it was really supposed to be a repository for melodies.
Yep.
That was the entire point of it, you know. But
Which he did remarkably well, and as
Absolutely.
he says himself, not all the words are wonderful. But I quite like that one. I portray it as tongue in cheek from Burns' point of view. But I was just reading today, Thompson seeing it from the other point. You know, maybe you're being pragmatic finally for the first time in your life, and you realise you got to go for the money.
Bit late in the game.
Well, it was. Aye. I think he died a couple of months later, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that he'd come to that conclusion early.
Yeah, that's right, Christine.
That's it.
That's lovely. Thanks. It's so rare to hear it. So thank you so much.
My great pleasure, and good evening to you all. I should have said all that earlier, but it's great to be in such esteemed company.
Ian, I'll maybe give you first bite at the cherry this time to see if you can steal Willie's poem off for the sake of.
Come on, tell us.
Go for it.
Right, I'll do one again. Haven't done it for a while. Reply to a trimming epistle from a tailor. What ails you now, you lousy bitch? To thresh my back, it's sick a pitch. Losh man, have mercy wi' your natch, your bodkin's bald. I dinna suffer half so much wi' daddy old. What though at times when I grow crouse and gie their wames a random pause, is that enough you to souse your servants say? Gae mind your seam, ye prick the louse and jag the flea. King David, o poetic brief, roch man the lassies, sick mischief, is filled his afterlife with grief and bloody rants, and yet he's ranked among the chief of lang syne sands. And maybe time for all my cants, my wicked rhymes and drunken rants, I'll gie old Clover Clutie's haunts and Unca slip yet, and snugly sit among the sands at Davy's hip yet. But fegs, the session, says a man, gae far upon another plan than garrin lassies cout the cran, clean heels her body, and sairly thole their mither's ban afore the howdy. This leads me on to tell for sport how I did we the session sort. All clinkum at the inner port cried 3 times, Robin, come hither, lad, and answer for it. You're blamed for jobbing. We Pincher put a Sunday's face on and snooved the war before the session. I made an open, fair confession, I scorned to lee, and sign Miss John, beyond expression, fell foul of me. A fornicator loony called me, and said my thought for bliss expelled me. I owned the tale was true, he tell me, but what the matter? Quo' I fear unless ye geld me, I'll ne'er be better. Geld you, quo' he, and what for no? If that your right hand, leg, or toe should ever prove your spiritual foe, you should remember to cut it off. And what for no? Your dearest member. Na, quo' I. No for that. Gelding's nae better than 'tis called. I'd rather suffer from a fall to healthy fluid, a sairer hit, as you can draw it, though I should rue it, or gin you like to end the bother, to please us all, I've just either. When next we on, lass, I forgether, whate'er betided, I'll frankly gear it altogether, let her guide it. But sirs, this pleased them worst of all, and therefore Tam, when that I saw, I said good night, and come awa and left the session. I saw they will resolve it all on my oppression. So you weren't going to do that, were you, Willie?
Oh, good show. Okay, I'm going to cue some more VT. Just give me a second. Here we go. Here's we're chanting, man. Here's Kenny. Giving it a laldy at the muscle.
Cammy, is there any chance you'd say a few words about this song and just explain what this song's about? My nanny's a what? Please?
No.
Well, roughly, I think it's about the 4 seasons of the year. Obviously, there's 4 verses. It's one of my favourite Burn songs anyway. It's called My Nanny's a What? New in her green mantle, blithe nature arrays, and listen the lambkins that bleat o'er the braes, while bars warble welcome in ilka green shawl. But to me, it's delightfulness, my nanny's awa. But to me, it's delightfulness, my nanny's awa. A snowdrop and primrose our woodlands adorn, and violets bathe in the wheat o' the morn. They pain my sad bosom, say sweetly they blow. They mind me o' Nanny, and Nanny's a
shoes all the lawn, the shepherd to warn, all the grey breaking dawn, and thou mellow mavis that hails the nightfall. Gie over for pity, my Nanny's awa'. Gie over for pity, my Nanny's awa'. Come, autumn, sae pensive in yellow and grey, and soothe me with tidings on nature's decay. The dark dreary winter and wild driving snow, alone can delight me, none is awa'. Alone can delight me, none is
There we go. Sad that we couldn't get Kenny on the on the Zoom call, but he's technologically challenged to a great degree. I just couldn't get him working with it at all.
I'm chanter though.
Oh, he has. He has.
Oh,
He's got a pair of lungs to him. He certainly has. Bobby Jess, what have you got for us?
Is it all right to do a wee bit of fun in my own,
You
Cammy?
can do anything you want, Bobby. Aye, absolutely. Please.
Well, as you all ken, the best poems are them that are based in fact and actual events. And I ken Billy Horn likes this, and so I'll do it. It's a wee short one. But what happened was that the wife and I and a group of friends went up in a minibus to Ayr races one day. And we had a recht good day at the races. But as you all ken, when you go to the races, you come home in two states. One, you're normally skint, and two, you're normally full. So we comes home back to Dumfries, and we goes to one of my friends' house, and we ordered a Chinese carry-out and a wee nightcap. And we're sitting there and we're looking out in the back garden, and here's this trampoline. And some idiot thought it'd be a good idea to go out and bounce up and down on a trampoline. Sure enough, I was on it, and my wife and another woman were on it at the same time, and bang, I turned my ankle, and I damaged ligaments in my ankle. And I was off work for at least a week. When I went back to work, my office colleague said, "Right, you wee scunner, you have to write a poem about yourself for a change." So I wrote this to warn folk off the dangers of a trampoline. It's called Bouncy Bouncy. On the elasticated canvas, strung atween 6 balls, balanced high and stirred the legs, rat to netting, fu holes. They call this toy a plaything for kiddies young and old, where fearties jiggle up and down much higher if they're bold. But for me this toy's a death trap, sure to do you harm, for if you lang a yachtward you could break a bloomin' arm. But the chances of an accident, and this I swear is true, are 200 times higher if you try it when you're fou.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Clever.
Very good. I just want to say, this is just a wee ancillary part just to go with this.
Ah, brilliant, Tommy.
Was that Daz by any chance?
It was, aye. Aye, Darren Walker, aye.
I thought I recognised him.
Okay, a song then.
Carriers to the nose, ca them for the heather grounds, ca them war the bonny rose, my bonny dear. Hark the mavis even sang, sound and Cluden's woods amang, there a folding let us gang, my bonny dearie. We'll get in by Cluden's side, through the hazel spreading wide, o'er the waves that sweetly glide, till the moon say clearly. Yonder Cluden's silent tours, where at moonshine midnight tours, o'er the dewy bending flues, fairies dance cheery. Call the owls to the meadows, call them o'er the heather grounds, call them o'er the bonny rose, my bonny dearie. Ghosts nor bogles shalt thou fear, thou to love and heaven say dear, Nocht will may come thee near, my bonny dearie. Fair and lovely as thou art, thou hast torn my very heart, I can die but cannot part, my bonny dearie. Ca the owls to the knowes, ca them o'er the heather grounds, ca them o'er the bonny rose, my bonny.
Sorry about that.
Lost the tail end of it.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Trying to be too clever.
Right, Charlie, sing the last line.
My bonny dearie.
Well done, Charlie. Well done.
Wonderful, Charlie.
Bravo. Bravo.
Sorry about that. I should know. Men can't multitask, you know.
That's not true.
You said it. You said it.
They can breathe and eat at the same time.
Well, it was a
I
wee
can
bit
drink
of that.
and press the space button at the same time. Look at that. Look.
Billy Horn, have you got something else for us?
Give me a minute. I think, oh, it's working. I thought my microphone was away again.
No, it's working grand. Working
All right.
always.
I'll just give you a pistol. epistle to the Reverend John McMath. Can't mind the first line.
While
Is
at the
it
stook, the
the
shearers...
stook?
Is it?
While at the stook, the shearers cower, to shun the bitter blood and shower, or, in ravage running, scour to pass the time. To you, I dedicate the hour in idle rhyme. My music, tired with many a sonnet, on gown and bawn and douce black bonnet, is grown right eerie now she's done it, lest they should blame her, and rouse their holy thunder on it, and anatheme her. I own 'twas rash and rather hardy that I, a simple country bardie, should meddle with a pack sae sturdy, wha, if they kenned me, could easy with a single wordie louse hell upon me. But I gae mad at their grimaces, their sighing, canting, grace-prood faces, their 3-mile prayers and half-mile graces, their raxing conscience was greed, revenge, and pride, disgraces, war nor their nonsense. There's gone, miscod, war than a beast, wi' his mair honour in his breast than money scores as gids the priest was they abused him. And may a bard no crack his jest, what why they've used him. See him, the poor man's friend in need, the gentleman in word and deed. And shall his fame and honour bleed by worthless skellums, and not amuse a rector he'd to cow the blalums? Oh, Pope, and I thy satire's dirts, I'd gie the rascals their deserts. I'd rip their rotten hollow hearts and tell aloud their juggling, hocus-pocus arts to cheat the crowd. God knows I'm no the thing I should be, nor am I even the thing I could be, but 20 times I rather would be an atheist clean than under gospel colours hid be just for a screen. An honest man may like a glass, an honest man may like a lass, but mean revenge and malice false he'll still disdain, and hence cry, zeal for gospel laws like some we ken. They take religion in their mouth, they talk of mercy, grace and truth, for what? To gie their malice scooth on some pair wicht, and hunt them doon o'er richt and ruth to ruin strecht. All hail religion, made divine. Pardon a muse as mean as mine, wha, in a rough, imperfect line, thus doors to name thee. To stigmatise false friends o' thine can ne'er defame thee. Though, blotched and foul with many a stain, and far unworthy o' thy train, with trembling voice I tune my strain to join with those who boldly dare thy cause maintain, in spite of foes, in spite of crowds, in spite of mobs, in spite of undermining jobs, in spite of dark banditti stabs at worth and merit by scoundrels, even with holy robes, but hellish spirit. Where, my dear, my native ground, within thy presbyterial bound, a candid liberal band is found of public teachers, as men, as Christians too renowned, and manly preachers. Sir, in that circle you are named, sir, in that circle you are famed, and some, by whom your doctrine's blamed, which gies you honour. Even, sir, by them your heart's esteemed and winning manner. Pardon this freedom I hae ta'en, and if impertinent I've been, impute it not, good sir, in ane was hurt ne'er wranged ye, but to his utmost would befriend ocht that belanged ye. Thank you.
Yes!
Outstanding, Billy.
Outstanding.
Outstanding, as ever. As ever. A rare job you made of that. A rare job you made of that. I'm going to cue another VT, and then Willie Dick, I'm looking at you maybe for another offering if you're up for it.
What hey a bunse bro lad, what hey a bunse branke ho, what hey a bunse bro lad, gam ye bari kele kanke ho, and the he had been ware heaven, if no heaven say Danteo, if he had seen what I had seen by the days of Gaelic Grandeo. Well, I fought at land, I fought at sea, I came, I fought my auntie-o, and I met the people at Dundee by the days of Gaelic Grandeo. I said, if he had been what I haven't, then no heaven say Danteo, if he had seen what I had seen by the grace of Gaelic Grandeo. Well, the ball better he fell way far, and I never saw the Grandeo, for I had fed and not the bread by the grace of Gaelic Grandeo. And if he had been what I haven't, then no heaven say Danteo, if he had seen what I had seen by the grace of Gaelic Grandeo. Ah, well, why Mackay, what catch a lie, and I put a on to the Grandeo, get better, his king, but it's slow, and company Gaelic Grandeo. There's nation to Swankio. The Tuesdays and not the praise, and the deals are Gaelic Grandeo. I said if he had been what I haven't, if no heaven say Danteo, if he had seen what I had seen by the grace of Gaelic Grandeo. I said if he had been what I haven't, if no heaven say Danteo, if he had seen what I had seen by the grace of Gaelic Grandeo.
Woo!
Thank you very much, folks.
Very good, Diggs. As if 3 wasn't bad enough.
I thought I'd give you 4.
Well done.
Very good, very good. Willie, Dick, what have you got for us?
Well, I thought I would do an epistle to been down here, as I said earlier. I've travelled for Ayrshire and I'm staying down here just kind of across the water, the same side as Dulswinton, and reminded of Burns coming down to Ellersland to start with and staying at the Isle. And I thought I'd give the epistle to Hugh Parker.
Excellent.
That's a favourite of mine because it kind of catches his highs and lows and his moods. And I'll tell you about the poem if you like. No, because I don't do preambles. In this strange land, this uncouth clime, a land unknown to prose or rhyme, where words ne'er cross the muses' heckles or limpet and poetic shekels. A land that prose did never view it except when drunky statured through. Here, ambushed by a chimlet cheek, hid in an atmosphere of reek, I hear the wheel from aye the nuke, I hear it, for in vain I look. The red peat gleams a fiery kernel, enhusked by a fog infernal. Here, my wanton rhymes and raptures, I sit and count my sins be chapters, For life and strength, like other Christians, I'm dwindled down to mere existence. We nae can verse, but Galloway bodies. We nae can face, but Jenny get us Jenny. My Pegasean pride. Dowie she saunters down this side, and aye the westland luck she throws, while tears happy her all brown nose. Was it for this? We cannae care. The bore a bard through mony a shire, at house or hillocks never stumbled, or later early never grumbled, who had had a poor inclination to hease thee up the constellation, to canter with the Sagittar, or lout the eclectic like the bar, or turn the pole like any arrow, when all Phobos bids good morrows, down the zodiac urge the race to cast dirt in his godship's face, for I would lay my bread in kale. You'd never cast salt upon thy tail, and oh this care, and oh this grief, and small prospects of relief, and nothing but peat rate I my head. How can I now write what yous now read? But in Tarbowton, on the 24th of June, you'll find me in a better tune until we meet in Water Whistle. Take this excuse for nae epistle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Superb.
Astounding, Willie. Astounding. It's a really, really good one, that. Kev, would you give us another song?
Right, this was written for Jean Jaffrey. The wonderful thing about Burns is he wrote lots of poems for different and songs for different Jeans, which is quite a cunning plan, really. And in case you forget the last names, this is Jean Jaffrey, who was the daughter of Reverend Andrew Jaffrey. He also wrote for her The Blue-Eyed Lassie. When first I saw fair Jeannie's face, I couldn't tell what ailed me. My heart went fluttering pit-a-pat, mine they almost failed me. She's icy, neatsy, trim and tight, all grace around her hover. Hail it deprived me o' my heart. So I became her lover. She's aye so blithe, so gay. She's aye so blithe and cheery. She's aye so bonny, blithe and gay. Oh, gin I were a dearie. Had iron asses, whole estate, or Houghton's wealth to shining, did warlike warrows crown my brow, or humbler ways and trining, I'd lay them all at Jeannie's feet, could I but hope to move her, and prouder than a belted knight. I'd be fair Jeannie's lover. She's aye so blithe, so gay. She's aye so blithe and cheery. She's aye so bonny, blithe and gay. Oh, gin I were her dearie. But Sarah fears some happier swain is gained per Jeannie's favour. If so, min every bliss be hers, though I min never have her. But gang she east or gang she west, twixt forth and tweed all over. Well, men have eyes and ears and taste. She'll always find a lover. She's aye so blithe, so gay. She's aye so blithe and cheery. She's aye so bonny, blithe and gay. Oh, gin I were her dearie. She's aye so blithe, so gay. She's aye so blithe and cheery. She's aye so bonny, blithe and gay. Oh, gin I were her dearie.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Kev. Outstanding.
Another wee different one.
Aye, no, it's great. It's great to hear all this new material. It's wonderful. Wonderful. I ken that tune full well. But,
aye, Maggie Lauder.
Aye. But I don't know that. I don't think I've ever heard that song.
Ah, well, there you go. Every day's a school day, Cammy.
Every day's a school day. New one in me. New one in me. So I thought I would maybe give you the Holy Fair. Upon a summer's Sunday morn, when nature's face is fair, I woke at forth to view the corn and snuff the caller air, the rising sun. Our Goston moor wi' glorious licht was glinting. The hares were hurpling down the furze. The laverocks, they were chanting foo sweet that day. As lixomly I glured abroad to see a scene sae gay, 3 hizzies early at the road come skelping up the way. Twa had manteels a dole for black, een wi' lyre lining. The third, that gaed a wee aback, was in the fashion shining foo gay that day. The twa appeared like sisters, twin in feature, form and clays, their visage withered, lang and thin, as sour as ony slays. The third come up hap-stepping, loup as licht as ony lammy, and wi' a curtsy loaded stout. Soon as e'er she saw me fu kind that day, we bone it off. Quoth I, sweet lass, I think ye seem to ken me. I'm sure I've seen your bonny face, and yet I cannae name ye. Quo she, laughing as she spak, and taxed me by the hand. Ye, for my sake, ye gien the fecky all the 10 commands of screed someday. My name is Fun, your crony dear, the closest friend ye hae. And this is superstition here, and that's hypocrisy. I'm going to Mauchline Holy Fair to spend an hour in Daffin. Gin ye'll go there, yon runkle pair, we will get famous laughing at them this day. Quo I, wi' all my heart I'll do it. I'll get my Sunday sark on and meet ye in the holy spot. Faith, we say fine remarking. Then I gaed hame at crowdy time, and soon I made me ready for roads were clad frae side to side wi' money's a weary body in droves that day. Here, farmers gash and the riding graith gaed hodding by their cotters. There, swankies young and braw-braid claithers springing o'er the gutters. The lassies skelping barefoot, thrang in silks and scarlets glitter wi' sweet milk cheese and money a whang, and farls baked with butter fu crump that day. When by the plate we set our nose, we'll heap it up with halfpence, a greedy glower, black bunnet throws, and we maun draw our tuppence. Then in we go to see the show. On every side they're gathering, some carrying dales, some chairs and stools, and some are busy blethering richtlood that day. Here stands a shed to fend the showers and screen war contra gentry. There, Resser Jess and 2 or 3 hours are blinking at the entry. Oh, there sits a raw tittling jazz with heaving breast and bare neck, and there a batch of lobster lads black gearing frae Kilmarnock for fun this day. Here, some are thinking on their sins, and some upon their claes. Ane curses his feet that filed his shins, another sighs and prays. On this horn sits a chosen swatch with screwed up grey-sprued faces. On that, a set of chaps at watch, thrang winking on the lassies to cheers that day. Oh, happy is the man, and blessed. Nae wonder that it pride him with his ain dear lass that he loves best comes clinking down beside him. With his arms reposed on the chair back, he sweetly does compose him, which by degrees slips round her neck and loof upon her bosom, unkent that day. Now, all the congregation are silent expectation. For Moody spills the holy door with tidings of damnation. Should Horny, as in ancient days, mang sons of God present him, the very sight of Moody's face, to his ain het hame had sent him with frucht that day. Hear how he clears the points of faith with rattling and with thumping, now mildly meek, now wild and wrath, he's stamping and he's jumping, his lengthened chin, his upturned snout, his eldritch squeals and gestures. Oh, how they fire the hearts devout, like Cartharidian plaisters on sick a day. But hark, the tent has changed its voice. There's peace and rest, nae languor, for all the real judges rise. Oh, they cannae sit for anger. Smith opens up his cold harangues o' practice and o' morals. And after godly pouring thrangs to gie the jars and barrels a lift that day, what signifies his barren shine of moral powers and reason? His English style and gesture fine are all clean out of season, like Socrates or Antonine or some old pagan heathen. The moral man he does define, but near a word of faith in that's richt that day. In good time comes an antidote against sick pushant nostrum for Peebles, frae the water fit to sends the holy rostrum. See, up he's got the word of God, and me can me view that 12 common sense is ta'en the road, and off and up the Cowgate fast that day. Wee Miller niece the guard relieves, and orthodox rebels, though in his heart he will believes and thinks it old wives' fables, but faith, the bully wants a manse. So cannily hums them, although he's cardinal wit and sense, like Coughlin's wise. There comes him at times that day. But now, Button Bay in the change house fills with Yill Cup commentators. Here's crying out for bakes and gills, and there the pipe stout clatters, while thick and thrang and loud and lang with logic and with scripture, there is a din that in the end is like to breed a rupture of wrath that day. Oh, leaves me on drink. It gies us more than either school or college. It kindles wit, it wakens leer, it pangs us fu of knowledge, be it whiskey gill or penny wheep or ony stranger potion. It never fails, on drinking deep, to kittle up our notion by night or day. The lads and lassies, blithely bent to mind both soul and body, sit round the table well content and steer about the toddy on this ane's dress and that ane's look. They're making observations, while some are cosy in the nook and forming assignations to meet someday.
Right, son.
But now, the Lord's ain trumpet touts, till all the hills are rearing and echoes back resound the shouts. Black Russell isn't spearing, he's piercing words like healing swords divide the giants and Mara. He's talk o' hell, where devils dwell, their very souls dishara with fright that day. A vast, unbottomed, boundless pit filled full of low and brimstone ways, rage and flame and searing heat would melt the hardest whinstone. And off asleep, start up with fear, and think to hear it roaring, till presently it disappear. 'Twas just some neighbour snoring, asleep that day. 'Twould be hour lang a tale to tell how mony stories passed, and how they crowded to the Yill when they were all dismissed, how drink gaed round and cogs and cups among the firms and benches, and cheese and breed frae women's laps was dealt about lunches and dodds that day. In comes a gossy gash-good wife and sits down by the fire. Syne draws her kebbuck and her knife. The lassies, near shire, the old good man about the grace frae side to side, they bother, till some yin by his bonnet lays and gies them it like a tether full lang that day. We sucks for him that gets nae lass, or lassies that hae naething. Sma need is he to say a grace, or Melvie his broad clothing, oh wives. Be mindfu, ain't yoursel how bonny lads ye want it, and dinny, for a kebbuck heel, let lassies be affronted on sic a day. Now, clinkum bell with rattling tow begins to John croon. Some swagger hame the best they do. Some wait the afternoon. It slaps, the billies hot a blink. The lassies strip their shoon. With faith and hope and love and drink. A hot and famous tune for crack that day. How many hearts this day converts of sinners and o' lassies, their hearts sustain, good night are gain as soft as ony flesh is. There's some are full of love divine, and some are full of brandy, and mony jobs this day begin might end in hook my Gandhi some other day.
Brilliant, Cammy.
Well done.
Brilliant.
Thank you all.
Excellent, excellent. Really
Thank
good.
you all. Well, if anyone has anything else that they're desperate to share, we shall hear you. But otherwise, I think it's.
Hey, Cammy.
What's
It was
that? Sorry.
embarrassing when I was doing that at one burn supper, a mixed burn supper.
Uh-huh.
I got to the verse, "So happy is that man and blessed." And the young couple sitting there, and I took his arm and I put it around the lady's neck. It was his sister.
Perfect.
It's one for your book, David.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Got in the borders.
Well, listen, I figure I'll draw things to a close with Auld Lang Syne.
Yep. Good man.
I'm just going to, again, up the file.
Thanks for the night, Cammy. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, well organised, Cammy. Brilliant.
Well done, everyone.
Thank you all.
Absolutely.
Aye, thank
you all.
very much, everybody. Great
Pleasure.
Tremendous.
It was grand
been
coming here, hearing things you don't normally hear.
Yes.
It's been a terrific night, and it's been a privilege to be amongst you all. Thank you very much.
David. Right.
Absolutely.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and Auld Lang Syne? For Auld Lang Syne, my Joe, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet. For Auld Lang Syne.
And surely you'll be your pint stout, and surely I'll be mine, and we'll take a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne.
And for Auld Lang Syne, my Joe, for Auld Lang Syne,
And we'll take a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne.
We twipe and put the braes and put the gowans fine, but we wonder when he's a weary fit, said Auld Lang Syne.
We twapiddled and a bun, fae morn and sun till dine, but the seas between us braid he roared, said Auld Lang Syne.
And for Auld Lang Syne, my Joe, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne.
And there's on my trusty field, and give hand o' thine, I will take a right good way walk for Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for for all around sang.
Yes.
Yes.
Well done, one. Well done, all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cammy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Well, son.
I don't.
Hi, everybody. Keep safe.
Safe home, everybody.
Sing that one.
Safe home, Willie.
Yeah.
Good night,
just trying to
everybody.
stop that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Night night. Till the next
Lovely
time.
to see you all.
Lovely
Take
to see
care.
you all. It's been a
Very
great night.
safe.
It was great to meet some of
Hope
you.
to see
Well
you
done.
soon.
Huge thank you, Cammy. Everybody was absolutely brilliant.
Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Helena. Thank you.